What's up, gamers? Welcome to Battle Mallet Podcast, episode something. I forgot to look that up. I don't know, 30-something. It's a new year. We'll call this the start of season 4 because why not? For anyone that's not familiar, Battle Mallet Podcast is a podcast following the lives of anywhere from 2 to 4 busy gamers playing games that they love and balancing life with those games. Tonight's episode is Rivals Overview Part 1 of Question Mark. I am joined tonight by Jason Table New Murray.
Good evening, morning, afternoon, good night. I don't know what time you're listening to this, but it's evening for us, so good evening. And
I am Jared Johnson, and we're gonna kind of break from the normal format of the show. Our plan tonight, after playing in a Rivals League for the past couple of months and getting some good games in, is to really build out what we want to be a living document that exists, in perpetuity as the game grows, as warbands fall in and fall out, as new warbands are introduced, where new players or veteran players who want to introduce new players to the game of Warhammer Underworlds can go to learn about the warbands that exist that have legal Rivals decks. And so we're going to start with today, whatever's episode. We're going to get through as many of the Beastgrave era warbands as we can. And so we're going to walk through each warband. We'll talk about the fighters, what the fighter cards look like. We're going to call out some top cards amongst the objectives, the gambits, and the upgrades. We're going to give a brief overview of the playstyle for the warbands. We'll talk about maybe the kind of board that you should be looking at, that you should be, introducing your friends to when they play. And then we'll wrap each segment up by talking about what to do if you're sitting across the table from those. Is that everything, Jason? Did we cover it all? Everything that we're going to cover?
Yeah, I think you covered everything that we're going to cover, and it's episode 32.
Episode 32. Nice. Thanks. So the way we're going to cover this is we're going to do in segments, and I'll put timestamps in the show notes so people can jump around as needed. We'll try to do 2 warbands at a time by release. And so what we'll do is we're going to take a quick break so that Jason and I can collect our thoughts and not ramble for hours and hours and hours. And when we come back, we will talk about Ironsoul's Condemners and Lady Harrow's Mournflight. And we're back, and we are here to talk about Ironsoul's Condemners and Lady Harrow's Mournflight in the Rivals format. I didn't go over this in the intro. My bad. Anyone that's not familiar, Rivals format is just using the warband-specific cards that come with the warband, and that's only available using warband-specific cards for warbands that were released starting with Beastgrave and then up to present day. And so these are warbands that have 12 warband-specific objective cards, 10 warband-specific gambits, and 10 warband-specific upgrades. So with that, we're going to jump into the Ironsoul's Condemners. Ironsoul's Condemners can be found in the Heroes of the Beastgrave box?
No, it wasn't the Hero. It was before that. Heroes of Shades, or Heroes of Nightfall.
No. Oh
no.
Nope. Dreadfane. The Dreadfane box, which is actually, I believe, available in at Barnes & Noble, is where it was originally available. I don't know if you can buy it in a Games Workshop store. Anyway, we'll leave that mystery to be solved by the listeners.
You can buy the warbands in a Games Workshop store, or used to be able to, okay. But Dreadfane was never available.
Okay, there we go. There it is. So Ironsoul's Condemners, they are Stormcast Eternals. They are Sequitors, I believe.
Sure. Yes.
I don't know.
They are Sequitors.
Okay. Cool. So it's a 3-fighter warband. Your standard stat block for Stormcast Eternals. They move 3. They're on 1 block. They have 4 health. But excitingly, they are probably the most accurate warband across all fighters in the game. So, Jason, you want to jump into that?
Yeah, so, their stat block is really they are really good starting fighters by themselves, right? So you have the leader, Gwen Ironsoul, which is 3 hammers, 2 damage. You have Tavian, which has 3 hammer, 2 damage attack. And he also has a shield slam, which is 2 hammers for 1 damage, but it has knockback, which is pretty important to the warband, given that they have 2 surge cards that have a condition with that need to have knockback in them. And then you have the man, the myth, the legend, the Brodus Isle, Blightbane, who is hitting on 2 hammers, which is a very accurate starting attack, but for 3 damage. And, because this is the first warband that we're reviewing, I will say that 3 damage starting out the gate on a fighter card in Rivals is kind of money.
Yeah, it's a big deal. And as we kind of dig into this, we'll see why there are a lot of warbands that have a lot of fighters that have 3 or fewer wounds. And so if you have a starting attack that can knock out the majority of the fighters in any given warband in one blow, that gets the glory train started, which then gets your upgrades on, which means you're either more accurate or you're doing more damage or you can move further or whatever it is that your upgrades allow.
Yeah. And the key to this warband to make them work in Rivals is to roll dice, because you want to get inspired. Because once they become inspired, they're, a typical Stormcast, but 2 block defense is nothing to shake a stick at, especially when there's not a lot of, altering in the Rivals format. Like there's cleave is only available if it comes with your warband. Not a whole lot of plus dices in certain warbands. So those 2 shields can tank some hits. And it's needed. And then once they are inspired by rolling a crit on their attack or defense dice, Ironsoul herself goes to 3 damage, also gains knockback. Brodus gets a cleave scything attack for 2 hammers and 2 damage. And, then Tavian just gets an additional damage on his second shield bash attack. But, and Brodus also goes to 4 move, which could be pretty impactful.
Yeah, could be big
move.
Yeah. So if you had to classify their play style, Jason, what would you say?
I think that given the fact that they only have 4 surge objectives and most of their objectives are pretty bad, you have to be aggro. So you have to go in and you have to win the fight.
Yeah.
There's no other way to play this in Rivals than to get into the mix and start stacking glory through kills.
Yeah, I agree. So some tips that we kind of think as you're playing them in this aggro fashion, you want to keep them together so they have some objectives around being close to each other. They have some ploys or gambits that only key if you're adjacent to each other. You want to try to hold one objective in enemy territory. They have an objective that keys off of that. Gang up, so that goes in line with keeping them together. So, just focus your attacks, take down fighters. You've got good, accurate attacks that do 2 damage each. So Gwen could hit, and then Tavian could hit, and you could knock out a 4-wound fighter with 2 activations. And then, last but not least, stay alive. You only have 3 fighters. You're going to find your ability to score your objectives and gain glory diminishes pretty quickly as you start to lose those fighters.
Yeah, and if you're keeping them together, you're going to maximize your attacks, right? Like, you're going to get a free attack if someone's next to you, or, maybe there's a push card in there, 1 or 2. So, so rolling right, I think that's a great way to play them, rolling right into the cards. I did mention they only have 4 surges, which is hurtful in the Rivals format. So really, my advice would be to ditch. Like, if you don't have forceful banishments, or maybe your turn, if there's a fighter that is close enough to start to kind of hit them and push them back into one of your players or one of your fighters, you're going to want to try to get one of those surge objectives that you can score in the first turn right in your hand. So be very quick to ditch and redraw. Sorry,
Yeah.
Lost my train of thought there for a
No,
second.
that's okay. And so real quick, Forceful Banishment is a surge. Score this immediately when an enemy fighter is driven back by a friendly fighter's attack action that has the knockback ability. So the key here is that it has the driven back keyword on the score condition. So you don't actually have to do the knockback, which means that the attack does not have to be successful. So as long as there is a tie and you can drive the enemy fighter back, you will score Forceful Banishment. So that's probably the better of the two between Forceful Banishment and your turn, which says score this immediately when an enemy fighter is driven back into a hex adjacent to a friendly fighter. So that just means you're knocking an enemy fighter basically into another friendly fighter, setting up those free attacks and also hopefully scoring your surge objectives.
Yeah. Really good if that enemy fighter is already charged, right?
Yeah.
But when you're setting it up just off of deployment, very difficult to do because you only have 3 move. The other big martial prowess early game, like third successful attack action, kind of could be difficult because they has to be successful, but it is 2 glory. And I guess the point, like, just really want to drive home is set these surges up. Don't be afraid to ditch. Get one of them in your hand to start the game off. But remember, you're not going to score all your objectives with this warband. So
no, you are not.
What about other cards? So gambits.
Jared. Yeah. So I was going to say that they have an in-faction distraction, but distraction does not exist in the current season.
Yeah, what's a distraction?
Yeah, what is a distraction? This whole podcast is a distraction. No, so the card is called Fulminating Blast, and so we will refer to these as push an enemy fighter card. And these are a big deal because obviously you don't get to add universal cards to your deck in the Rivals format. So anybody that has the ability to manipulate their opponent's positioning through gambits is going to kind of have a leg up. So they have Fulminating Blast, which is that in-faction push an enemy fighter card, which is a big deal. Another one that I think is really cool is Improvised Blow. And I don't know if it is the only, but it may be one of the only Gambit attack cards. So this says choose a friendly fighter adjacent to an enemy fighter. The chosen fighter makes the following attack action. And it's a 3 swords for 1 damage card, which, is not that big a deal, but it's 3 dice. This warband inspires by rolling crits. So it's another chance to roll a crit and also do a damage to a fighter, maybe get them in a position during the power step to be knocked down by another attack going into your activation. And then, Mason, I think we called out Outflank?
Yeah, Outflank as well. This one is another push card. Is choose a friendly fighter adjacent to another fighter and push them up to 2 hexes. The key here is when you're deploying, you can use it off the trigger of standing next to one of your friendly fighters, push your person 2 hexes, and then kind of overcome the 3 move. Or you can also kind of use it to set up further attacks, in the future. If you are next to an enemy and you need to get further in to the enemy deployment area or zone, you can push away and get a free attack without charging. Really, the 2 push cards help you maximize without having to charge, so you can get more attacks to try to achieve that goal of inspiring and giving yourself a fighting chance.
Yep, I like it. All right, so moving on to upgrades. So you may have noticed that we have not talked about many of the other objective cards or gambits. We also are not going to talk about many of the other upgrades because the honest reality is that the Ironsoul's Condemners deck is not very good. The cards are not good. The fighters are, and they can be fun. But so we really only have a handful of upgrades to talk about. Etherically Charged Weapon being one of those. It's a reroll on attack actions. It can go on any fighter. And that's basically it for the universal upgrades. There's a +1 wound and a +1 move, but at 4 wounds and stuff, and the inability to rapidly get glory, upgrades are going to be not as readily available. But we do want to talk about the fighter-specific upgrades, whether they're good or bad. I think one of my favorite upgrades in the game is Punishing Blow, which is specific for Brodus Blightbane, aka the Brodus Isle. It is a range 1 3 smash 4 damage attack with cleave. So if you find yourself in the mirror and you can manage to get this upgrade on, you could take down, any of the other Stormcast with some pretty decent reliability. And then Jason, you want to cover the last two there?
Yeah, so I mean, just to talk, like, do you remember that punching blow is like a one use only? So once you attack with it, you have to discard the card.
Yeah, that's true.
But it is 4 damage, and in Rivals, 4 damage is very, very rare. So definitely a powerful card. And then just, the other thing with Rivals that I think a lot of us veteran players have to get used to is there are going to be upgrades that are fighter specific. Like, we don't often put those cards into our decks in Championship. So it is really cool to see these where they can only go on a fighter or 2. The other 2 is the Etherically Charged Shield. You can reroll 1 dice in each defense roll made by this fighter, and that one can go on Tavian or Ironsoul herself. Pretty powerful card, because once they're inspired, that reroll could help. And then Soul Hardened Shield is when this fighter is activated before making an action with them, give them a guard token. Again, if you're in a position where you are just attacking, this is kind of, a free action. So getting a guard token, always a good thing, especially if you're standing in gloom.
Yeah, that's right. Yep, because then you get those double supports as successes as well. All right, Jason, let's say you are playing in a Rivals format and you sit down across the table from the Ironsoul's Condemners. Top tips?
Well, the top tips are, I've played them as a Rivals thing, and I didn't know they had 4 surges until this episode. So I didn't even know that when I was putting the deck together. But that would be the top tip, is they only have 4 surges. And even then, I would say there's probably only 2 of those surges that can be scored. So slow down, right? If you have a couple passive glory cards in your Rivals deck that you can score, you're going to get ahead of them. And then don't allow them to roll dice. Like, if you're going to go in and attack them, make sure it's calculated, because the more dice they roll, the more likely they are to inspire, which that's their whole game. If they get inspired and they can start dealing 3 damage, become very defensive, you play right into what they want to do. So play the passive game, hold back, and really pick your opportunities so they don't roll as many dice as they want to.
Wait, sounds good.
So
go ahead.
Oh, so if you were a new player, right? And
Yep.
Let's kind of like rate the warband.
Sure.
Brand new player, I really like Stormcast. What would you give this? A gold, silver, or bronze for a new player?
Can I give less than bronze? No, it's bronze. I mean, it's a solid bronze. The fighters are good and they're fun and they're aggro and everybody loves to roll crits. That's probably been our favorite thing in the Rivals League that we've been running, is just like going nuts anytime somebody rolls a crit or a double crit, just because it's exciting. It hits that dopamine hit. But the cards are not good. Their objective deck is not good. Their power deck is not good. It's tough to get the train rolling.
Yeah.
So I mean, they're a bronze.
They are bronze, and for any new player looking to pick them up, the thing that I would say is they're not going to teach you the whole game. Like, you're not going to be able to play, you're not going to see how objectives can kind of stack. You're not going to play a whole lot of upgrades. You may learn the card cycling mechanics pretty well, because you're always looking to get better cards. But if your dice go cold, it's not going to be a real enjoyable game.
They don't have a lot that they can score without having to interact with their opponents.
Yeah. So good.
Cool.
There's Ironsouls, solid bronze on the new player rival scale.
Oh, there we go. Starting off strong.
On to Lady Mournflight. One of my favorite championship warbands to play when they first came out. Beautiful models. You call them left, center, right, because you can't tell what one's what.
Nope.
But from a stat block, they're pretty good as well. They all have 2 dodge.
That's good.
That's
rolling 2 defense dice, man. It's more opportunities for crits. They'd also check the Rivals box of having a 3 damage
fighter right out the gate in the Widow.
There's an asterisk there. She's on 2 Furies. So not the most accurate of 3 damage attacks, but it's still there.
It's still there. You can still, there's 2 crits available on those dice.
That's right. They're fast. So move 4 uninspired is for 4 fighters. I mean, you need to get somebody somewhere. There's a good chance you'll get them there.
Yeah. And really, like what you said about not being accurate, the other 2, the Anguished One and the Screaming Maiden, they're also on 2 Fury. So not the most accurate. Where we went from, the previous warband where they're very accurate, they're not.
They're not. Nope.
But they have the 2 dodge, and then the leader has the Lady Harrow has 3 Fury, which is not a bad stat. All the rest of them besides the Widow doing 2 damage.
Yeah.
The 4 move, but the Inspire. What do you think about the Inspire?
Yeah, so you have a lot more control over this Inspire. So the Inspire condition is this fighter move through a hex occupied by an enemy fighter in this activation. So they just have to move through an enemy fighter. You have a lot more control over doing that. It's not random, like trying to roll a crit. But what's critical is actually getting them inspired. So they start, the leader has 4 health. The 2 of them have 3 health, and then one of them has 2 health or 2 wounds. When they inspire, the Anguished One goes from 3 wounds to 4 wounds, and the Widow Skaeth goes from 2 wounds to 3 wounds, which is a very big deal. It makes, as Jason said earlier, it makes Widow Skaeth go from squishy to soft, and the Anguished One goes from soft to what I would consider a hard target. 4 health is a pretty magical window, especially in the Rivals format where 4 damage is pretty few and far between. But what really changes is the accuracy and then some pretty cool on-card abilities. So, Jason, you want to run us through those?
Yeah, because the accuracy kind of stacks here. The Maiden with the 4 goes from 2 Fury to 4 Fury, and then on a crit she gets an additional damage. So a 4 dice fighter is really darn good. Yep. And then the Anguished One goes to 3 Fury, but she gets this great ability where the rolls of crit do not count as critical successes or successes for the defense rolls when she's making attack actions. So That is huge. Like, you roll the credit, now that doesn't matter. Like, nope. That is a very powerful ability when inspired. And then the Lady Harrow going to 3 damage, right? So, and she gains cleave. Right. And probably one of the most forgotten about, at least when I played her, the most forgotten about ability on a fighter card is if she's not attacked when she's inspired, she can push. Like, you can react and push her 1 hex. Yeah. And given the type of objectives they have in their power hand, you want to be on objectives. You want to be moving around the board. I should say on feature tokens. You want to be on feature tokens. So that can really, really help you. So let's move right into that, Jared. Like, yeah, let's talk about the objectives, because they've changed with Harrow Deep and not being objectives right out the gate.
Yeah, so they used to have one of the kind of coolest surges in the game, Fleeting Memories, which is score this immediately when a friendly fighter makes a move action and enter 2 or more different hexes that contain an objective during that move action. This used to be pretty straightforward, whether you got 2 objectives or 3 objectives to set down onto your board. You could put 2 of them, each 2 away, and then put your fighter adjacent to one of them, and you move your 1, 2, 3, 4, and you enter both of those hexes that contain objectives. Boom, surge scored. Now you have to flip them first, which means that you need to put a fighter on them first, which means things like Lady Harrow's reaction are going to be important. So you can push people around, or having pushed tokens of your own, or maybe pushing enemy fighters off of gloom hexes that they flipped. So that's one. But another one in that same vein is One Will, and this is another surge. Score this immediately if your warband holds 1 or more even number objectives and 1 or more odd numbered objectives. So what's cool now is that despite the fact that feature tokens start as gloom tokens, the numbers that you are putting down and so there's a really good chance that if you have 3 objectives, 3 feature tokens, you will get an even and an odd. You just have to remember which one is which. But it is still a surge, so you will score it and be able to get that glory train rolling. So that covers a couple of the surges. Jason, what else? What else is good in their objective deck?
Yeah, just one other thing on fleeting memories too is remember when Widow, if the Widow is inspired, she does have an action. If this fighter has no move tokens, place this fighter in an empty hex and give this fighter a move token. So she can bounce around the board and get to the feature tokens that you need her to. And then, the one thing that I do want to add here is because historically, you would play them, you would always pick engagement and kind of offset and give your opponent the 3 objectives and you would take 2. Now maybe you take 3 because that way you'll kind of know exactly where those are, and you could really set yourself up to score 1 will and then have another fighter already positioned from a starting hex to score fleeting memories. And, for our listeners, their gambits cover anything else that you want to do.
That's true.
So, even though you have to work harder for some of these objectives that were very easy, that are still very scoreable, the gambits can lead you to the way. The other 2 objectives that I wanted to go over to was just Nexus of Terror, which is a gray card. It's in the end phase if your warband holds the most objectives for 2 glory. That's almost like dominant position, or another one of those championship cards that are the hold 2, hold more objective play style. With the pushes in their gambits, you can score that a lot. And then Dominion of Death, which a 3rd score objective, a 3rd end phase card, is typically not, they don't get played much anymore, but in Rivals they will. And this one is actually really good for 3 glory.
Yeah.
If you scored the most objective cards, you're going to get it. So that 3rd end phase, or the third phase of the game, the 3rd round, you probably want to go first.
Yes, agreed.
So,
yeah. Cool. All right, so gambits. 2 push an enemy fighter cards. 1 in the form of just push an enemy fighter, and another one is it actually kind of assists in the inspire condition. It says choose an enemy fighter and push them up to 2 hexes towards a friendly fighter. So that's Call of the Grave. So you could actually pull somebody immediately adjacent, and then you get to easily move through the hex that contains that fighter. And then Frightful Aspect is the push an enemy fighter up to 1 hex. So you can push them toward, away, sideways, whatever you need to do. What else, Jason?
And then another one is that doesn't get played a lot. So just want to call this out there because I think it's really cool, is Dissipate. It's a reaction, so you play it during an attack action before the attack roll, and you choose a friendly fighter, and that fighter gets an innate dodge. This persists until the attack action ends or until a friendly fighter is taken out of action. Just cool. I automatically have a successful defense.
Yep.
So you better roll some stuff.
Yep. And then I get to roll 2 more dice.
Yeah, right.
And then kind of the last one that we want to call out here. And before I call this out, it's really worth noting that the gambits in the Lady Harrow Mournflight rival deck, they're all good. There are none of them that I look at and I'm like, yeah, I'm never going to play that, or that's not worth playing. They're all very good. But the last one that we really want to call out is Spectral Charge. So +1 damage to the first range 1 or range 2 attack action made by a friendly fighter in the next activation. So it's you have some fairly accurate fighters when they're inspired, and you just get to throw a +1 damage on there. So it pushes, 2 damage to 3, 3 damage to 4. You get you can get some work out of this gambit. So with that, we go to the upgrades. What do you think, Jason?
There, once again, a lot of good ones in here. Debilitating Aura would be the one that I would pick, though. The -1 dice to adjacent enemy fighters is really, really good in the Rivals format.
Yes, yeah. where you're not able to add a lot of accuracy because you can't draw from the universal cards. And so now you're reducing your opponent's accuracy, and you as a fighter are on 2 dodge anyway, so you get to roll 2 dice on your defense. So you could be taking somebody, from 2 hammers to 1, and you still get to roll 2 dodge. So pretty good.
What else? What other ones you like?
So Sweeping Dash, this is a +2 move upgrade, and this can really help with positioning. It can really help you score 1 will, Fleeting Memories. There's an objective where you have to go through block text and an enemy fighter, right?
Yeah, Inescapable Hunger.
Yeah. So, it can help help you score stuff. It can help with your positioning. If you, go in and do your attack, you could get out of dodge, in the next activation or whatever you need to do. So it's pretty good.
Yep. And then I just want to call out, because there is one fighter restricted card. It's probably the worst power deck card in their whole deck. And that's Gravesand Glass, which goes on Lady Harrow, and she has a reaction after an attack action or ploy that takes an enemy fighter out of action, heal her 1. So great. But once again, just want to make sure that everyone is aware that there are these fighter restricted cards.
Yeah.
So we went through all that. We didn't actually say what type of play style. So in Rivals, what type of play style do they have, Jared?
Yeah, so this is going to be what everyone calls flex. So meaning that they do 2 things or more, and they want to hold or manipulate beyond objective tokens, feature tokens, but they can also do aggro. So they're going to get some glory from their objectives. They're going to get some glory from actually fighting and taking out enemy fighters. So we would call it flex, and you really only need to hold 2 unless your opponent is also holding objectives. And the hold 2 is really just to make sure that you're holding more than your opponent, and also being able to score things like 1 will. Yeah. If you're laying boards down, you're playing them, what's the one thing you definitely want to have, Jason?
A blocked hex. Pick a board with a blocked hex so you can score Inescapable Hunger.
Yeah.
You need it.
Can't count on your opponent to have a blocked hex.
That is true. Unless they place first and they put one down and you think that you can run all the way over there and get it. I still would put a blocked hex down because it also, you can move through them so it doesn't hurt you, but blocks them from doing things.
Yep.
It's
good. Yep.
Recap for new players.
Well, not yet. What happens if you're sitting across from me?
Oh, look, I'm getting ahead. I have notes and I'm still getting
rushing.
ahead.
Yep.
All right, so if I'm sitting across from them and I have to play against them, there are 2 things. Like they have passive glory. There are some things, and they're like, so we didn't talk about Ghostly Torment. So they have an objective where they have to have 2 surviving friendly fighters, but then 2 fighters on the board have to have wound tokens. So I want to gang up on one person. I don't want to leave any one of them with a wound counter on them, because that'll help them score that. I want them to kind of have to waste activations not killing my guys, putting wounds on my guys and not killing them. So I want to gang up on them, but I want to be very specific when I go in. I don't want to give them the easy inspire, but I have to keep the pressure on them. They have this kind of passive scores that they can do, and they are not accurate until they are inspired. So really pick and choose when I come in and just gang up on that one fighter, whoever they give me. I want to go after the Anguish one. If you're going to give me one to go after, maybe you misplace Skaeth and I can just one-shot her with the 2 wounds, but probably not. If I have a Jagger Throw and a Spear, I might be coming after her anyway. But to Widow. But if I had to pick one of any of the other ones, I want to take out the Anguish one before they get the extra pip of wound going to 4, and they get that crazy crit negating ability. So that would be the one that I would try to gang up on first. But again, really pick where you're going to come in and do that. Don't do it activation 1, turn 1. You don't take out that fighter, and then you're just sitting there for the easy inspire.
Right. Yeah. So don't give away the inspire. Target the Anguish one. Maybe you'll get lucky and be able to take out Skaeth. So for a new player, what do we rate them? Silver, platinum, diamond?
Yeah, can I go diamond or platinum?
Yeah, right. Yeah, right.
I mean, definitely gold. I think we hit it that their power deck just fires. Like it is it is really, really good cards, decent fighters. And for me, if I was a new player or I was introducing a new player and they had the basics of the game down, right? Like
Yes.
they knew the rounds, they knew the activations, they knew all the things that they could do. This is the warband that I would move to next. And for that is because it allows you to manipulate the board state with the gloom hexes, where you're getting bonuses for your dodge and on gloom. You're flipping those gloom hexes or feature tokens into objectives, scoring surges, and really it's a positioning game. I think this is a great warband. They're really powerful in Rivals, but I think it really would be a great progression to kind of see how a warband should operate after maybe playing in Ironsoul's Condemners.
Yeah. And I think that it's also important to note it's a 4-fighter warband and there are 4 activations per action phase. So, that kind of helps a lot. All right, so we'll take a break here and we will come back with the Beastgrave starting warbands, Skaeth's Wild Hunt, and Gashrak's Despoilers.
Yeah.
And we're back, and we are here to talk about the starters in the Beastgrave, Skaeth's Wild Hunt, and the Gashrak's Despoilers. So we'll start with Skaeth's Wild Hunt, like we did for the last warband. We'll take a look at the fighter cards. So this is a 5-fighter warband. They have Skaeth, the leader. He's move 5, 1 block, 4 health. And then the rest are very similar. So there's 3 more normal elf dudes. So anyone that's not familiar with the warband, Skaeth is like a centaur. He's like a deer body and then an elf upper body. And then we have some like goat-legged elf people in Carthaean, Shiok, and Althane. They're all 4 move with 3 wounds. Carthaean has 2 dodge. But this is the first time in the game of Underworlds where we're introduced to the Hunter keyword, which doesn't have any innate effects, but it controls maybe which objectives are scoreable, which upgrades can be played, which gambits can be applied. But the last and 5th fighter is Legane, who is just a large kitty cat. So 5 move, 1 dodge, 2 health.
One of the coolest looking models that does nothing.
It is. Yeah, he has a cool model. He's like a little tiny lion. He's got a crown, like a barbed tail. I don't know. He's cool, but he doesn't do anything. It's not very good. Skaeth is awesome. So he's got a javelin, and this is the second time we've seen a card like this. We saw it in the previous season in Night Vault with Jagged Thrupp. But range 3, 2 hammers, 1 damage. On a charge, it does an additional damage, so you can pip 2 damage. With his 5 move, that's a threat range of 8, which is pretty good. And then he's got his kicking hooves, which are 3 furies for 2 damage. And then, the attacks are kind of samey across the way for the rest of the fighters. Carthaean, 2 smash for 2 damage. Shiok is 2 smash for 2 damage. Althane is an archer, so she's 2 smash for 1 damage, but range 3. So fairly accurate attacks, but not ridiculously accurate, but not a lot of damage in this warband. The Inspire condition is that the fighter has a charge token at the end of a phase. So that gets interesting with the way that the new Inspire steps work, and we can dig into that later.
We can go into it.
Well, yeah, we go into it now. Yeah, so yeah, because it matters, because things get a little better for them when they do Inspire. So the Inspire step is after the first activation, after the end of a phase. So you're going to get your charge tokens on, but your fighters will not Inspire until after the first activation, after they've charged.
So
after
the end of
when they've charged. So you lose an activation of Inspired fighters.
Yeah.
Whether that's on the attack or on the defense, whether your opponent decides to go first or you decide to go first.
So like a phase would be the whole action phase, like everyone's activations in the round is the end of the action phase, right? So before the end phase, they trigger the Inspire, but they don't actually Inspire into the Inspire step,
Correct.
which doesn't come out until the first Inspire phase in the next activation in the next round.
Right.
So
yep.
you're going to have a really, you may have a choice at round 2. Do I want to go first and do something at a weaker level, or do I risk it and let my opponent go first, allow them to do something, and then I get all 4 activations kind of
at an
powered
inspired
up
state? Yeah. So one thing of note is that Carthaean has an on-fighter card action where he basically toots his horn, calls the hunting horn, you put a horn counter on the card, and then during the next attack action made by a friendly fighter, you get to re-roll any number of dice. So that's pretty good. It provides for a lot of additional accuracy. It can make sure that, like your one shot actually goes through, because it's not just re-roll 1 dice, it's re-roll any. So, I mean, that would be a good use of an activation if you decide to go first. So you get to, use the hunting horn action, and then your fighters are inspired for whatever is going to come at you. But on the inspired side, Skaeth's Javelin gets more accurate. It goes from 2 hammers to 3. The big thing here is that his hooves become a scything attack, and he goes to 2 block, which is a big deal. Carthaean goes to 3 damage, which is, as we've mentioned before, having 3 damage on your fighter card in Rivals format is big. It gives you the opportunity to one-shot a lot of fighters, 4 of the fighters in this warband, in fact. So, I mean, that's, they all get a little bit more accurate, but, nothing crazy there. So
they all go to 5 move. So they
do go to 5 move. Yeah, so they do get faster. Yeah, that's a good point. Sorry, we're trying to move this along quickly, so we may have to interrupt so that we don't miss anything important. Jason, objectives.
So objectives, we'll start with you may want to ditch for a couple of these cards. So there are some that will not score, like unless the board state is just perfect. So very more difficult than when they were written. But I would go with Rundown as being, one of their best, where this immediately a friendly fighter takes an enemy fighter out of action with an attack action that was part of a charge action. So that would be a good trigger, and then Run Through if there is a enemy taken out of action by your leader. So those 2 surges just kind of go hand in hand together, and really good. Those are really good surges.
Yep. And then for the end phase, probably the best one is in there is Purifying Rites. So this is score this in an end phase if your warband holds all objectives in 1 or more players' territories. This is actually pretty easy to score now, thanks to the Gloom hexes. So now that feature tokens start flipped, all you have to do is put 1 fighter on 1 objective in your territory, and then delve it right before the end phase, and it's for 2 glory. So it's pretty good.
Yeah, and we'll say, just wrapping them all up, like other than that one that has the lethal hex, right, or on an objective hex for the surges, everything else is fairly scoreable. Like,
yeah,
they're at a total of 15 glory. Like, you might have to work for it, but you can get through it. Moving on to the gambits, what are your big ones here?
Yeah, so Hunt in Concert is big. Choose up to 2 friendly fighters and push each of them up to 1 hex. I mean, that's pretty nice. You can move a fighter, push a fighter onto a feature token, delve it, and then now that fighter can then go charge something else. And so you have your delved feature hex. As needed, helps with positioning. And then the other one is Retrieve Javelin. So not one that anyone would have ever taken in a championship format, but Skaeth's Javelin is 1 use only, and this is a gambit that allows him to do that Javelin attack again. It's really nice when he's inspired, because it does go to 3 smash. So you have a really accurate ranged attack that can do 2 damage on the charge. And then this is spells. So these will be the first spells that we see in the Rivals Warband overview. And then, the one that's in here that's probably the most worth noting is Might of Kurnoth. It's a gambit spell, casts on a focus. If cast, choose a friendly fighter. Their range 1 and range 2 attack actions have +1 damage. This spell persists until the end of the round or until that fighter is taken out of action. So it's not just the next activation, it's all of that fighter's attack actions. It is worth noting that Carthaean is a level 1 caster when he's not inspired. He goes to level 2 when he does inspire, and he's the only caster in the warband. So getting these spells off might not be the easiest thing to do.
Yeah, and the other thing, too, that I just want to point out, because this is the first time we've seen spells, is that there's only one caster in the warband, right? And there's 3 spells. There is an objective soul binding, which is a surge, and there's one upgrade that are all for one fighter. So Carthaean can add a lot of utility to your warband, and then when he is inspired, he does go 3 damage. So he is really important to this deck. Not saying that if you lose him, you're going to lose the game. You'll just have to be very mindful to ditch a whole lot more if he goes down.
Yeah, that's a good point, Jason. All right, so upgrades.
Yeah, 1 or 2 of them.
Yeah. So I've Kurnoth is good.
Yeah, so I have Kurnoth, which is, +1 dice. You also get Ensnare if they're a quarry, but +1 dice and is very good. And then Shield Slash is probably the one that you're hoping that Skaeth survives round 1 and that you get a glory, and then you get Skaeth with his Shield Slash, which is 3 damage. And now you have 2 fighters that are at 3 damage, which could be really, really good.
Yep.
And then the last one is the one that reduces damage, the Hail Charm, which reduces damage by 1. It's also restricted to a hunter, but that's 4 of your fighters. And taking Skaeth from 4 wounds really to 5 or 6 if you have to attack him twice. Not that he's going up in the wounds, but that's what the equivalent is by reducing 1 damage. And in the Rivals format, where damage is hard to come by, very powerful card. And even if you need to put this on, what the heck is his name? Carthaean can also help you out big time.
Yeah.
So playstyle.
Flex. Here we are again, but with a heavy being leaned towards aggro. So flex between hold objectives and aggro, but much more towards aggro, basically because of the inspire condition.
Yeah, the inspire condition you're going to have to attack, but
you have to make charges.
There's even an objective for holding 3.
That's right. But it's a hybrid. You can either hold 3 or you take down an enemy fighter with a wounds characteristic of 4 or more. So that's good. Boards. What do we want on boards?
I want something in the middle, kind of has middle deployment. I really want to leverage their speed.
Yep.
They are soft, so I want to make the enemy have to work to come to me if they're going to come to me. But then I want to pick the engagement. I want to be able to use that 4/5 move to get in where I want. So anything that has 3 or 4 starting hexes, 2 back or 3 back from the edges, so I can choose that.
Yep, I like it. What if you're sitting across from them?
I don't know, Jared. You've played these so much.
I have.
If I'm going to bring out the Wild Hunt, what is your plan to dismantle me?
Yeah, so either I'm going to try to kill Skaeth or I'm going to try to avoid him. So I'm going to bait you with a target on the flank so that Skaeth ends up on the other side of the board, and then I can kind of run the other way and work on the rest of your fighters. Or I'm just going to put the bait right in the middle and hope you go for it and then come in and try to kill Skaeth. He's able to do the most work in the warband, mostly because when he inspires, he goes to 2 block and he's got 4 health. And then that siding attack means that if I'm bunched up, he can come in and pop multiple fighters for 2 damage. So
don't bunch up, right? Don't bunch up.
Try not to bunch up. Yeah, try to split out. Your targets aren't hard, though. 3 health, 1 dodge for most of them.
Yeah.
It's pretty doable. New player rating?
I'm gonna give him a solid silver. They're fun. They can be aggro, so they're gonna go in and hit things. I think their objectives are okay. The rest of the deck kind of complements that. I think they're pretty matchup dependent. If you're going into a larger warband they're going to be more effective.
Yeah.
If you're going into an elite warband, you might struggle with your damage output. But if you're going into, let's say, a Grymwatch,
or Gashrak's Despoilers,
or Despoilers,
yep.
So
cool. Well, speaking of Despoilers,
segue.
It's well done, Jason. Why don't you run us through the fighter cards?
All right, so the Gashrak Despoilers are a 6-man warband that really kind of revolves around 2.5 fighters. So 3 of their fighters are just like the Usher, which is Ushkor, Gnarl or Gnarl's Barkley, and the Sneak. Those guys are just there. Like, they can help you achieve some of your objectives, but they do 1 damage on attacks. They're 2 wounds. They're really giving up glory. You utilize them when you need. Yeah. The other 2, the leader, Gashrak himself, decent fighter, 2 hammers, 2 damage, 4 health, which is big because he is the beefy one of the warband. He's also a caster, which may be a trap.
It's a trap.
It's a trap. But he also gives the warband a reroll if you have a ritual counter, which is pretty cool. You get ritual counters from killing other. You start with 1 and then get them if you kill an enemy fighter. Yep. And then really, like, you have the Doom Bull or Draknar, which is everyone's focus of this warband. He's a very aggressive fighter, 4 move, 3 health, starts on a shield, which is pretty good. But hitting on 2 hammers for 3 damage, right? That 3 damage threshold that we've been talking about. So he's what's going to kind of get the attention of everyone. But the real unsung hero of this warband is the Halfhorn. So yes, he's hitting on 2 Fury, but he's doing 2 damage, and he's kind of the cleanup man. Draknar goes in and sets him up, and Halfhorn knocks him down. And they inspire by having 2 enemy fighters out of action. And when they do, my goodness, Gashrak. I always call him the Despoilers. So, Gashrak he gets cleave, still has the reaction. He does go to 2 power or 2 wizard level. Draknar, the Doom Bull, he goes to 3 Fury with cleave, so he gets a little more accurate. But then Halfhorn goes to 3 Fury, so he gets a lot more accurate. That 3 Fury really makes the difference when looking for a crit. So that's the fighters. Fun 6-man. Moving into objectives. How do they fit into that?
Yeah, so Despoilers. So when this warband was introduced, this was the first score immediately for holding objectives in the game. And so it was score this immediately after an activation if your warband holds 3 or more objectives, and it's for 2 glory. So it's a great way to get that glory train rolling. And the thing of it is now, though, is it's going to be a little telegraphed because you're going to have to go onto your objectives and then delve them. But you could also use that to bait your opponent. So you could push onto objectives with fighters that you don't care about, delve those objectives, maybe bait an attack, and then you can go in and clean up with Draknar or something. But that one's a big deal. We've also got Stampede, so that's the other surge, and this is score this immediately when a 3rd or subsequent friendly fighter makes a charge action in the same phase. And you may be thinking, well, how am I going to charge 3 fighters and not put them all in danger? Well, 2 of your useless fighters have ranged attacks, so you can make those charge actions and still be 3 away from the enemy fighter when you inevitably miss and do not damage them.
Yeah, well, you can definitely set up the charges onto the Gloom feature hexes, right? Right. Get a little extra protection and achieve some things. So.
Yeah. All right. What about the end phase, Jason?
Survival of the Fittest. One of my favorite style of cards where you score for things being out of action.
Yep.
For 2 glory, 5 or more fighters out of action. This could include your own. You do have to have at least 1 surviving friendly fighter to score it. It's in an end phase, and it really can swing the game. So I really like that one. And it kind of fits their play style, right? They're a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and kill stuff or die, and we're still going to score some glory.
I like it. And it's 2 glory in the end phase, so that's nice.
Nice.
All right, gambits. We got some Baying, Anger, and Hatred. So Baying Anger is +1 dice, and Baying Hatred is +1 damage. This is really nice on Gashrak, or not on Gashrak, on Dragnar. So you push him to 3 hammers for 4 damage in an activation, and then you can use the ritual counter to do a reroll and possibly dome a 4-wound fighter in single activation, which can be a big deal because if you're facing 4-wound fighters, you've either taken out a leader or you've taken out one of an elite warband. So I like those. What else do we like, Jason?
Yeah, the other one will be Vile Invaders, and this one can really set up that Despoilers, right? So it's push 2 friendly hunters and push them 2 hexes. Keynote here, Draknar and your leader are not hunters, but everybody else is. So this card can really set you up. Let's say you already have 1 on an objective, right? And you push on to 2 other objectives and delve, and then going into your activation, you do something and then score that Despoilers. So I really, really like that card for up to 2 and push up to 2. It's big time.
I like it. All right, so let's move on to upgrades. Blood Craze. So this is a +1 damage card, but it has a caveat. So +1 damage to this fighter's range 1 and range 2 attack actions if this fighter has 1 or more wound tokens and or is adjacent to a fighter that has 1 or more wound tokens. So either you're damaged or the person you're attacking is damaged. You get +1 damage on your attacks.
Or you have a friendly fighter adjacent to you that has a wound token.
Right.
Someone's got to be wounded.
Somebody near you has to have taken some damage. So this can push Halfhorn to a 3 damage attack. And you push Gashrak to a 3 damage attack, push Dragnar to a 4 damage attack. It's pretty good.
Another one that is a fighter-specific card, and these guys have a lot of fighter-specific cards, more than Wild Hunt. You actually have to pay attention what card can go on who, because they're not just hunters. But one for Draknar is called Trophy Taker, and this is if you take an adjacent enemy fighter out of action, you gain an additional glory point. Yep. Really great card to stack glory on someone that wants to be knocking people out of action anyway.
Yep. And then the other upgrade that we want to talk about is Heedless of Pain, and it's +1 wound on either Morgwaeth, Halfhorn, or Draknar. So you're pushing them from 3 wounds to 4, which is a big deal. That's a big threshold.
Yeah.
Playstyle, Jason?
Well, before we get to the playstyle, just one last note on just the cards themselves. The thing with Despoilers and me having played Despoilers is there's a lot of combos in the cards, and because the warband is so squishy, it's going to take a little bit to figure out those nuances. I mean, like Halfhorn, you have Bowl Charge, which you think would go on Draknar, but it's really for the Halfhorn, which gets you an innate Fury. So now he's hitting. You have Blood Taunt, which basically damages you to get you plus dice. Plus it kind of goes with Blood Craze. So there's a lot of combos in there that can really take this warband from kind of wet noodle to I have a lot of dice, a lot of damage with some rerolls. So a lot of combos in the cards here. And that leads me to the playstyle of being flex. So, you want to get on objectives for some things. You want to aggro some things. And in the end, you just want to kill things.
Yep. Sounds pretty flex to me.
So if I'm out there and I got the warband in front of you, what are you countering with?
I'm just going to kill all the little dudes. Just farming glory, my friend. I mean, two health with 1 dodge. That's a beautiful target. It's a beautiful target.
Skaeth's coming in with his javelin.
That's right. And even Dragnar, I mean, the fact that he starts on 3 health, if you can either hit the little ones or you can spend a couple of activations and take down Dragnar, hit him with 2 damage with once and hit him with 1 damage the next time, he's out. And takes out a pretty heavy hitter in the warband.
Yeah.
Yep.
Target of opportunity.
Yep.
What about new player rating? Bronze, silver, gold.
So, when we were talking about, we said silver. I think this is like a like a silver bronze alloy, maybe more
Yeah,
more
I can see that.
more silver than bronze, but still, I don't think they're quite as good. I mean, they're fun. They're a lot of
Yeah.
fun to play. There's different ways to score glory, but they are very, very squishy.
Yeah, that's a fair assessment. They're probably right on that like tier of it could be bronze, it could be silver, because they can go poorly if you're not getting those combos that you need.
Yeah. I mean, I'm willing to say, as much as like 70 or 80% silver, to 20%, 30% bronze, but they're still not quite like a pure silver.
Well, good.
Oh,
well, that does it for the starter set of Beastgrave. We'll take a break and we'll be back with Grymwatch and Rippa.
So we will start with the Grymwatch. Jason, you want to cover the fighter cards?
The Grimmy Watch. Yeah, so the Grymwatch are a 7 fighter warband, which could be tricky to manage for new players in the rival format. There's a lot of pieces out there. Most of them are the same. Like there are 3 like Crypt Ghoul hunters that are basically have the same stat lines. You have Alric, which cannot resurrect, which we'll talk about in a second. And then Grizzlewell, which is kind of that magical 3 damage we keep talking about. So keep him safe. They're all the fighters, all the ghouls looking fighters are 4 moves. So Grizzlewell can kind of be safe. And then you have the Harriers, which are just, large bats, the Duke's Harriers. They have 5 range, which is pretty good right out the gate. And really that is your dangle bro. That's the piece that you want to put right out there closest to the enemy, because if you lose them, it really doesn't matter. So they are that distraction piece. And then last you have the Duke himself, which he has a range 2 attack, which is really good for maximizing those attacks. 2 hammers for 2 damage. But I do want to touch on he has a special action, and also this action takes place at the start of the action phase in round 2 and 3. And that is he can do a ghoul call, which brings back either the Royal Butcher, the Master Talon, or the Knight's Herald back into the game, and you place the scatter token on the board, roll a die, and whatever way it kind of goes, they go to the furthest hex possible way and they come back, which is kind of like a key component of this warband. The other thing that for that new Rivals player that I'll just put out there here is just don't feed your opponent the glory, right? Don't feed them the Crypt Ghouls. You don't want them to just lay waste to those fighters. So that's kind of the fighters. Their Inspire is at the end of the round if you have less than no more than 2. Oh my goodness gracious. Can I read? You do not want 2 enemy fighters in your territory. If there is only 1 or less, you Inspire. Again, they are triggered in that Inspire phase, Inspire step process. So the first activation of round 2, if you would have triggered to be inspired, you'll have to wait till that Inspire step to inspired. But a key for this warband is to get inspired early and keep the enemy out of your territory.
Yep.
To the cards.
To the cards. So kind of the first objective that we want to call out is In the Name of the King. This is the Grymwatch version of Despoilers. Score this immediately after an activation in which your warband holds 3 or more objectives, and it's 2 glory. So it's a surge. Happens during the activation phase. Can feed glory for upgrades as you need them. But you got to be on 3 objectives to do it. So what else, Jason?
Pervasive Delusion, which is when you play your 3rd or subsequent Gambit card in a single round. Simple surge. Simple surge.
Yep.
For doing what you want to do anyway.
That's right.
And then the last one I think is the oh my goodness gracious, my reading comprehension. Incomprehensible scheme.
Speaking of incomprehensible.
Score this in the end phase if your warband holds more objectives than each enemy warband. So all you got to do is hold 1 more.
Yep, that's right. And it could be 1 if your opponent's not trying to get on any. So
could be.
Yep. Sweet. All right, gambits.
Well, given that we went over we don't want the enemy in our territory, I think appalling visage. Yes. Choose one friendly fighter and one adjacent enemy fighter. Push the chosen enemy fighter 2 hexes away from the chosen friendly fighter. Again, we think we've picked a push card in almost any and all of these kind of recaps, but this one could be vital early game, keeping the enemies out of your territory to inspire.
Yep. So the next one you have is Pack Advance. Again, on the theme of pushes, choose one or more friendly crypt ghouls and push each of the chosen fighters up to 2 hexes. Just like the Vile Invaders card from the Despoilers, this is a good way to get 2 fighters onto objectives without having to use activations, or 3 fighters, since there are 3 crypt ghouls. You could actually use this, push your fighters onto the gloom hexes, delve those gloom hexes into objectives, and then do something else with another fighter during your activation and be able to score in the name of the king.
And then the last gambit that we're going to talk about is an odd one. I'm not going to say it's the best out of all 10 of these, but Recycled Riches is basically, we don't manipulate the discard pile all that often in this game. And this one, you take all the cards from your power discard pile that have the Grymwatch warband symbol, shuffle them face down, then add the top card to your hand, return the other cards to the discard pile. Really, really good early game, especially if you're trying to get that appalling visage or Pack Advance twice. That is really, really good. Kind of late game, it's hit or miss, but I think it's a cool card because we don't see that type of mechanic often.
No, that's true. All right, so let's move on to the upgrades. I think the first one that is worth noting is Impervious Delusion. So this is an upgrade. It can go on any fighter. If this fighter would be dealt more than 2 damage by an attack action or gambit, they are instead dealt 2 damage. This damage cannot be further modified. So if you want to keep Gristlewill alive, somebody comes in swinging for 3 or 4 damage. Somebody comes in swinging for 3 or 4 damage against the Duke. They've spent spells or gambits to do so. Well, suddenly they are only doing 2 damage. So it's a pretty big deterrent, really, because the upgrade would be on the fighter when they come into swing.
Yeah, it's not as strong as it is in Championship, but still keeping one of those 2 fighters alive, it's probably going to do it at least once.
Yep.
The other one that the Seized Weapon is it's a weapon action upgrade, 3 Fury for 2 damage. When you apply it to a fighter, if there's someone adjacent to you, they take a damage, an enemy fighter, which is pretty cool. But the key with this card is the Crypt Ghouls, they come back. And, really what you're looking for is for them to come back and use this weapon over and over again. So that's what I meant. Like, you don't want them to go away, necessarily go away turn 1 and give away easy glory. But if it does happen, they come back with a weapon and they're in prime charge radius on the board to eat up your enemies.
Yep.
Then the third and final one is, well, not third and final. I think we got 4 here, but
we do have 4. Yeah. So Well Motivated is the next one. Is that critical +1 damage to this fighter's range 1 and range 2 attack actions upgrade. Throw that on Gristlewill, he's doing 3 damage. You put it on Valrique or one of the Crypt Ghouls that has the seized weapon, and now they're doing 3 damage, which is pretty good in the Rivals format.
Yeah, there's very few +1 damage in Rivals, and this one is even good on Crack Marrow, so he can go to 4 damage at 2 range if you so desire.
Yep.
And then we would talking about fighter restricted and Crack Marrow. They also have a trophy card, so when this fighter's attack action takes an adjacent enemy out of fighter, gain 1 additional glory point for Crack Marrow himself. So if the Duke gets powered up and inspired, he can really harvest some glory for you.
Yep. Yeah, that range 2 attack action is nice because it means that you can maybe move and then start bopping people that are 2 away.
Yeah.
Play style, Jason.
Flex. Again, to just say it in one word, but really the name of this warband is defend your territory turn 1, get inspired, then leverage what glory you do have to start going and taking out your opponent. They have the range, they have the Ghoul Call, they have some really good upgrades and gambits. but getting inspired is paramount to get Griswold hitting better, Valric hitting better, plus a little better dodge, and then really Crackmarrow, leveraging him to three damage.
Yep.
You have to defend your territory and maybe score a Name of the King along the way.
I like it.
What about the new player rating? Oh, boards.
So you only want 2 easy targets, 2 easily accessible targets for your opponent, and those 2 easily accessible targets should be Valric and the Harriers, because of what Jason described earlier, where you want to keep the ghouls alive to give them the upgrade so that when they do inevitably die, you can bring them back.
Fantastic. Now the counter. So if I'm playing Grymwatch,
you tell me, Jason. You played him a bunch. How do I break you?
Don't let me inspire.
Yeah, that's true. Yep, 100%. Block that inspire whenever you can.
Yeah,
give them if you have the choice, you give them 3 feature tokens so that you can control the engagement, so that you can have 2 or more fighters in enemy territory, so they don't get that inspire. They change drastically.
They do. They definitely change drastically. They get different upgrade or different abilities on their fighter cards. I mean, the Herald gets the -1 dice from adjacent attacks.
Yep.
If he gets inspired. Griswold becomes really nasty if they inspire. So kind of where in other warbands we've said pick your time to go across. When you're playing Grymwatch, get across and then pick your time.
I like it.
New player rating.
Silver.
Another silver. Why this one silver?
Well, I mean, so they've got good cards, and the fighters are good. I think that there's something to be said about learning to manage a 7-fighter warband, which maybe pushes them like on the low end of silver. But they've got some great objectives, that lend towards what you want to do with the warband anyway. The fact that you want to defend your home territory, and kind of sit and wait and score some stuff passive and then go in and smash your opponent. I think keeps them in that silver rating.
Are they more silver than Despoilers or less silver than Despoilers?
Definitely more silver than Despoilers.
Okay.
I think the fighters overall are better. Crackbear going to 3 damage is a big deal.
Well, excellent. That gets Grymwatch out of the way and right into Rippa's. And did you know, a little fact note for our listeners, Rippa's is one of the few warbands in my collection that has not actually seen the table.
I did not know that.
Yeah, it is one of the... There's only a few, Mollog being another one. They are fully painted, and I have yet to actually roll dice. I've played them before, but not my painted Rippa's.
Should change that. Don't you have some more League games to play?
I do.
Throw Rippa's in there. All right, so Rippa's another elite warband. 3 fighters, 4 move, which is nice. 1 shield, 4 health. So a lot like Stormcast Eternals, but they're less accurate and they do less damage. Kind of the theme here is you want to let people attack Rippa because your other 2 guys inspire when Rippa's attacked, and then you want to try to build up glory because Rippa inspires when he has 2 or more upgrades on. One of the new features on this card is they have a reaction attack action. So all of these goblins are riding wolves. They get a Snarlfang Jaws attack on their fighter cards. It's made after an activation in which this fighter made an attack action. And it's 1 smash for 2 damage, cannot be modified, but it is 2 damage. And as we've seen in a lot of the other warbands, there are a lot of 2-wound fighters out there that become even more vulnerable in the Rivals format thanks to the lack of universal upgrades. So that that bite attack action can be critical. It can let you attack 2 fighters. Do one with your regular attack, do another one with the bite attack, and so on. And it really is critical in scoring some of the objectives that we're going to look at. So with that,
with the Jaws, all 3 of them could hit for 3 damage right out the gate.
That's
with
true.
Rippa hitting for 4.
Yep, that's true. Yep.
It is two attacks, but
yep,
it's pretty cool.
It's in that mythical number.
It is hitting that number. To start off on the objectives, I'm just going to go leading the charge. Like, Rippa, we want them to get attacked. I'm just going to go in there and I'm going to score this immediately if my leader makes a successful attack action that's part of a charge.
Yep.
Dun,
You have two. Well, no, only one opportunity to do that. The bite doesn't count.
The bite doesn't count because it's part of a charge action, correct?
Yeah, but he has two hammers for 2 damage. I mean, 2 smash is fairly accurate.
That's right.
Yeah, could happen.
Going in. I'm doing it.
No mercy. I think it's another one worth talking about. Score this immediately after a friendly fighter's successful attack action that targeted an enemy fighter with 1 or more wound tokens. So this plays right into the wolf bite. You come in, do 1 damage, 2 damage with your normal attack, and then the wolf bite hits. And it also lends itself to the fact that these fighters don't do a lot of damage out the gate. So you could hit with 1 and then come in and hit with another one. Because you're not doing enough damage to take fighters out. So you can score glory, and you're taking a fighter out. So really, this card is worth 2.
Yeah,
or those upgrades.
Or you just sit there with Mean Eye, just plucking away with his bow. You're like, boo, boo.
That's true. You could do that as well. That's also an option.
So, and then another one would be Cruel Hunters, right? Yes.
Conquered Land.
I'm sorry. I'm skipping ahead. Conquered Land. Score this in end phase if your warband holds all objectives in 1 or more players' territories. Just like Wild Hunt with the Gloom, this is pretty good. It's worth 2 glory, so you can totally just sit one of your guys in your territory, delve that in the last activation, hold all the objectives in your territory, and you're going to score 2 glory.
And get 2 upgrades on Rippa, and now he's inspired.
Now we ready to roll.
Nailed it. One objective that we do want to call out, not because it's necessarily good, but it probably has the best objective card art in the game, is marking your territory. It is exactly what you would imagine it to be with a warband of 3 wolf riding dudes when it comes to marking your territory.
I love that card.
It's awesome. All right, Gambits.
Oh, Gambits. Furious Reprisal. Reaction, play this after an enemy fighter's attack action that targeted a friendly fighter. That friendly fighter makes an attack action that must target the enemy fighter, and you can reroll any number of dice in the attack roll. So this is a free attack action. After you've been targeted and survive, you can use it to make a Jaws attack. Now the Jaws attack couldn't be a reaction to the attack action. Because it specifically says in the fighter's activation, but you could select Jaws as your attack, and then you could reroll those dice.
Yep. Yeah, so one thing of note is that the Snarlfangs Jaws cannot be modified, so you cannot add dice, cannot add damage. You can only reroll. That's basically it. What else did we pick? Narrow Escape. So this one's nice. Reaction, play this when a friendly fighter is dealt damage before placing wound tokens on their fighter card. Reduce that damage by 1 to a minimum of 1. So somebody comes in, they spend a lot of resources to do 4 damage to one of your 4 wound fighters. Boom, now that was a 3 damage attack. This fighter is not out of action, and they've spent a bunch of resources to try to make that happen.
Cool, and then the last one, we're going to go with a push. Pack Tactics, choose 1 friendly fighter and up to 2 other friendly fighters that are adjacent to that fighter and push each of them 1 hex. So always maximizing attacks or maximizing your move. We love those push cards.
We do. All right, upgrades.
Oh, the best upgrade. Bonded.
Bonded.
So when this fighter makes an attack action that targets an adjacent enemy fighter or the target of the attack action made by an adjacent enemy fighter, this fighter is considered to have 1 additional supporting fighters. And let me tell you, when you're standing in a Gloom Hex and you have an inspired Rippa,
and you're on guard,
you're probably not going to get hit because it has to be critted out. So
yep. You literally cannot roll a failure on your defense dice at that point.
If you're on guard. But either way, Bonded is very good, even if you're not on guard, and you're still getting it, basically going to a shield. And then if you're on a Gloom Hex, which you probably want to be or will manipulate to be on your charges, it really ups your survivability.
Yep. So the next upgrade is Embittered Survivor, +1 wounds. This is always a big deal on 4 wound fighters because it pushes them to that past the threshold of 4 damage, which is pretty rare, as we've discussed. So you're just making one of your fighters have 5 wounds, which is awesome. Last but not least, Jason.
The pack leader, giving it to Rippa, where he can reroll some dice on his Jaws attack.
Yep.
And it is a fighter restricted card, so good to know there. One thing that we didn't know when we were breaking down Rippa's, the upgrades, they don't have a ton that are great. They have some good ones and then some very niche ones. So not too heavy on the upgrades. But that leads us to playstyle. And if you're asking me, I think they're probably passive, sit in the back.
Yeah, super passive. No, 100% aggro. If you want to play an aggro warband, this is the warband that you and you want to feed them Rippa. So you throw Rippa in early. Hopefully they attack him. Your other 2 fighters can get inspired. It just increases your defense, helps with the Snarlfang bites, all those things.
And boards? Do we have any recommendation on boards?
I mean, you could probably go mid.
Yeah, I think I would go mid, but I'm not sad if Rippa's up front. I just don't want them to maximize their charges on Rippa.
Right.
Like I want to give them 1 charge, maybe 2. So mid. I think is mid with the fact that there are some objectives where you do have to hold an object or a feature token in our area. So.
Yep.
So.
What if we're sitting across from them?
Yeah, I finally get them on the table, Jared. What are you gonna do?
I'm not attacking Rippa.
No, you're supposed to.
No, I'm not attacking Rippa. I'm gonna go after the other 2. Do the best that I can. Understanding that in the Rivals format, I may not be able to take them out. So if I can damage one and then damage the other, whatever the case is, just kind of get them down, get them vulnerable. And then try not to have vulnerable fighters. Oh, I can't use the word vulnerable since that's the keyword. Try not to have squishy fighters, 2 wound fighters, next to each other, so that Rippa can't come in and do 2 damage on one and then have his wolf do 2 damage on another.
Yeah, you definitely just stay away from Rippa. Don't let him maximize his attacks.
Yep. Rating?
I'm gonna give him. We're on the silver kick, and the thing that I'll say here is like you kind of mentioned it. If you're gonna play aggro, play Rippas. And the reason that I'm saying silver for a new player that wants to just get in and start rolling dice and be aggro, I think Rippa fits it perfectly. If your dice go hot, you're going to be like, these guys are amazing. They have some survivability. I think they're really, really fun. I think they transition very well to championship. Like they're a great stepping stone warband. You get to learn a lot of the actions and reactions. And then when you're ready to go in a championship, you already know the warband in and out, and you just add in some aggro cards. So I'm going to go a solid silver. And on matchup, if you're going into Grymwatch or you're going into Despoilers, what we just covered, these guys are they're loving life.
Oh man, those wolves are just chomping down. All right, that's awesome. So we'll take a break and we'll come back with the Wurmspat and Hrothgorn's Mantrappers.
Ooh.
And we're back. And in this segment, we're going to talk about the man, the myth, the legend himself, Hrothgorn and his Mantrappers. And we will also be talking about the Wurmspat. And we'll get the Wurmspat out of the way first. So the Wurmspat, Nurgle warband. This is an elite warband, 3 fighters. They're tough. They have built-in damage reduction. It's the first time we've ever seen anything like this. So anytime you roll a defense roll, if you roll a shield, it reduces the damage by 1 to a minimum of 1. This can be really disruptive when fighters are coming in. The fighters are all reasonably accurate, doing 2 damage, uninspired. Fecula is a wizard, so she has a ranged attack, and that can help with the Inspire. The Inspire condition is that 3 or more enemy fighters are out of action and or have 1 or more wound counters, so you just need a total of 3 or more wounded and or dead enemy fighters to get Inspired. But when they get Inspired, they're really good. So Gulgach and Sepsimus, who are the two other fighters, go to 2 block. Sepsimus gets 3 damage on his range 2 smash attack. He also gets a 3 fury 2 damage scything attack. Golgotch goes to 3 smash for 2 damage with cleave, and then even Pecula goes to 3 damage for 2 smash with the cleave, and her spell attack action is now gets to be cast on channels instead of foci, so it's a more accurate.
And she doesn't go to 3 damage; she goes to 3 hammers.
3 smash for 2 damage. So you have your much appreciated 3 damage attack on Sepsimus, and then what is arguably the most accurate attack available in the Rivals format with 3 smash on your other 2 fighters. So all in all, I mean, the fighters look pretty good uninspired, and they look really good when they do inspire. So
yeah, great stat blocks.
Yeah, really good. I mean, they're a little slow, so move 3, right?
Yeah.
But what do you expect when Papa Nurgle has blessed you with all of his blessings?
Still 5 range threat on Sepsimus and 6 on Fecula, so there's still some range there.
Yeah, Sepsimus being range 2 is a big deal. So we talked about that with Crack Marrow. His range 2 attack was a big deal, and it holds true for Sepsimus as well. How about those objectives, Jason?
How about them? So 3 surges. 3 surges.
So if anybody hasn't been keeping up, most of the warbands that we have talked about to date have had 5 surges. Grymwatch has 6. And then, like we said, I think that the Condemners had 4. It just makes it hard to churn through your deck. So with only having 3 surges, if you don't have any of the surges in your hand, any of your surge objectives in your hand, when you draw your objective hand, you want to ditch. I don't care what's in there, you ditch. If you have any surge objectives in your hand, you probably want to keep them, because if you ditch them, who knows when you'll get them back. So.
Yeah, the only one that I would say is the caveat is Blessed Endurance. If the enemy fighter or the enemy warband doesn't have a 3 damage characteristic, that one I would also get rid of as well.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, if that's the only surge you have, then yes, get rid of that one for sure.
Yeah, but
anyway, so now that we know that the objective deck for this warband is a hot pile of garbage, what are the 3 nuggets?
The 3 I'm going to take, or the 3 that I like?
3 little kernels of corn, and then.
Well, Sleeping Rod is probably their easiest score. The only downside to this one is it is dependent on your opponent. But it's scored immediately when a friendly fighter is holding an objective that is a target of an attack action and is not driven back, and they survive. So they're still holding the objective after they've been attacked. They have to be holding the objective, so you have to get on the feature token and flip it. But it is, when it happens, it scores easily, and it's the only super easy one in the deck for score immediately.
Yep. Yeah. So the other surge is Fell the Faithless, and this is just score this immediately when an enemy leader is taken out of action. So, something you're probably going to be trying to do anyway, but is not always easy to do, especially on turn 1.
Yeah. Then the easiest objective in the entire deck would be the Cycle of Decay, which is score this in end phase if you play 2 or more cycle ploys in the preceding action phase. And that'll really lead us into the gambits, because the cycle cards are gambits, and they have, I think, 5 of them.
They do, yeah. So, cycle is just a special type of ploy. You play it just like any other gambit. And then probably the best cycle card is Nauseous Revulsion. So this is -1 dice from attack actions made by enemy fighters adjacent to 1 or more friendly fighters. One thing to note about the cycles is that they persist until either the end of the round or until you play another cycle ploy. So there is another good cycle, though, and that's Unnatural Vitality, and this is just a flat +1 move to your friendly fighters. So you go from 3 move to 4, which is, it's a big deal. So Sepsimus's range, his threat range is now 6. Fecula's threat range is now 7. So it really lets you reach out and attack targets as needed.
Yeah.
What else we got for gambits, Jason?
Well, another thing that can also make them a little bit more mobile is Steady Advance, where you can choose up to 2 fighters and push them 1 hex. Can set you up on those feature tokens, or really maximize your activations and get Septimus to attack multiple times as he ping-pongs around.
Yeah.
The other thing to note is there are 3 spells. Just again, as it is Rivals deck, like Fecula, although these spells are not great. But if Fecula goes down, those 3 cards become useless.
Yeah. Yeah, and they do have an objective to score if you cast, I think, 2 or more spells. Yeah.
Cool.
Yep.
On to upgrades.
Upgrades, yeah. So I do want to say that like all of the cycles are good. Most of their gambits are good. The spells aren't worthless, but they're not, game breakers. And their upgrades are great. Like all of their upgrades are pretty good. It's really just the objective deck that holds this warband back. So to kick things off, we've got Stolid Bulk. So anybody that knows anything about Nurgle knows that they're all about getting bigger and being infected with more disease. And so Stolid Bulk, it just means that the driver cannot be driven back. And that's critical for Seeping Rot, the objective that Jason highlighted. You can still be pushed, which, differentiates it from other upgrades employs that prevent pushing. You just can't be driven back as part of an attack action. Yeah. What else?
And then Unstoppable Tread, which is a reaction after the fighter's activation, push this fighter 1 hex. Again, this upgrade is, in my opinion, the best in the deck, because it can really allow you to maximize your activations with any fighter, but mainly Septimus because he has 2 range. If you want to get in, if you don't want to burn the charge and lock him up for the whole round, you have this card on him. Put him on guard. If you put him on guard, then you can push him 1, or move, and then you can push an additional 1. Then if you attack without the charge, you can then push again and kind of, bounce around and really get more than just that 1 charge attack around that you could get. So.
Yep. Yeah, and then I think probably the last key upgrade is Hulking Physique. So this is Grymwatch specific, but it is -1 move to a minimum of 0. But it is also +1 wounds, so you're now pushing a naturally resilient fighter to 5 wounds, and +1 damage to this fighter's range 1 attack action. So his default attack action is now 3 smash, 3 damage with cleave. Very accurate, very deadly attack, and it's pretty good. And then honorable mention goes to Putrid Vomit. So this is an attack action upgrade whose flavor text is, and I quote, so it's a ranged attack, 3 fury, 3 range, 1 damage. It's eligible for Fecula and Grymwatch. And it's actually useful for getting the Inspire off, letting you get extra attacks without necessarily having to move to try to do that ping damage to meet that Inspire condition.
You just like the flavor text.
I love the flavor text. It's my favorite flavor text in the whole game.
So good. So that's the kind of the cards. We got the fighters.
Boards? What kind of board do you want?
A board.
A board? Yeah. So with 3 fighters, and they're being kind of slow, you want starting hexes closer together, and you probably want them closer to the front of the line because they are slow, but not necessarily like right on the line. But as we were discussing this earlier, offline, Jason brought up a really good point. You want to pick a board that's going to allow you to push those feature tokens towards the middle of the board. So whatever feature tokens you get to place are pushed towards the middle of the board. You likely want to try to place 1 across the line, and then if you get 3, then those other 2 you want to be really close to the middle of the board. It just lets you stay close. It lets you keep engaged, keep Fecula in range to cast her spell if somebody else comes for the objective, and what have you.
Yeah, I think we can explain that more as we go through the play style too. So
yeah,
what would you say their play style is?
So I think that if we're playing championship, you can push this warband into full control where you're really actively working against your opponent's goals. And then doing aggro when needed. So they're still flex, and that's kind of a theme across the Rivals decks is they do a lot. But because they don't have anything that really affects their opponents. You don't have a card that lets them push enemy fighters or move feature tokens around or anything like that. It becomes maybe like a denial aggro warband. You want to hold objectives to keep your opponent from scoring and to help you score Seeping Rot, but you're likely going to be relying on kills to get glory. So you got to be patient. You got to choose your engagements. You got to keep your fighters close together, and that's where that objective placement. You want to hold those objectives to prevent your opponent from getting on objectives or holding more, which has been a theme across the other warbands in the Beastgrave. And then the other thing is you want to protect Fecula. So she's the only wizard. You got 3 spells. You have an objective for casting spells. She remains on 1 block when inspired. So she's definitely the easiest to kill, especially after the inspire. And her spell attack action is super accurate once she is inspired. So, you can ping opponents down. Anything else to add, Jason?
Just try to keep them together. Like that way, it allows you to maximize the range 2, the range 3, and grab those feature tokens early. Because if you're lucky and you do survive, like there's a chance that you score their in-faction supremacy, which is hold 3 objectives in the end phase.
Yep.
Nurgle Garden's Grow, I think, is hold more than the opposing warband. So there are some to get there, but you have to survive. So get in that gloom, hold those feature tokens, and really, have them come to you, like you said, like denial style, and then hope that you can strike back. But it's definitely an uphill battle.
For sure.
That's why we would label this a bronze level warband for Rivals.
Yeah.
This is definitely one that I think can be fun, and when the mechanics work, and we've seen it, in our Rivals League, we've seen the mechanics work. It was amazing, the amount of shields and crits. This warband, you're lucky to score 9-10 glory, and that really needs to be your objective as you're in there, is keep my opponent to 6-7 glory, which means that you kind of have to have an understanding of what the other warbands want to do.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't recommend it for the newest of players until you kind of have an idea of how you can play that denial game. But they are fun when it stops the damage from growing through.
Oh, it's it's the best. So what if you're sitting across from him, Jason?
Oh, I skipped that, man.
It's all right. I wasn't even going to say anything. We're just going to be a natural transition, my friend.
Got to call it the flaws. But if I'm sitting across from them, I'm not giving them a target. Like I am going to make them charge me as much as I can. If they get on an objective, do not attack them.
Nope.
Because they're just setting you up for Seeping Rot. And then when all else fails, kill Fecula.
Yep. Yeah.
So that's who I'm going after.
Yep. No, I like that. That all makes sense to me. Cool. So that's the Wurmspat. Next up is Hrothgorn's Mantrappers. So Jason, you want to run us through the fighters?
Yeah, we go from famine to feast.
Literally.
So 5 fighter warband. There are 3 Noblars, which are either 3 or 2 wounds. There is, some cool abilities here with Bushwhacker. He can place a trap on the board, which is a hex that turns into a hex that if someone is pushed into it or moves through it, it does 2 damage. So kind of a cool mechanic. I don't know how much it'll come up, but definitely cool when it does. Quiv is another Noblar that is just there, but his added ability, if he's next to Hrothgorn, he can give him a reroll on his ranged attack, which is really cool. The other one is there, like he's a soft one, so he has 3 wounds, so he's there. Then there is a saber-toothed tiger, Thrafnir.
Yeah, he's cool.
He is cool, and the cool thing about him is, he's a supporting character with 5 move out the gate.
Yeah.
3 dice on Fury, hitting for 2 damage. So a great missile to get into those back lines and get those squishy fighters.
Yep.
And then there's the man, the myth, the legend himself, the man trapper Hrothgorn, who is just a he's a real ogre of a time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
6 wounds.
6 wounds.
6 wounds.
6 wounds out the jump. He has a range 3 attack that's a little inaccurate. Like I said, you can mitigate that with the reroll off the Noblar on 2 Fury, but 2 damage on a 3 range attack.
Yeah.
He's 4 move, so his threat range is just it's 7.
Yeah.
And then he brings this melee attack, which is range 1. That's 2 smash, which is pretty accurate for 3 damage.
Yep. There's that critical. There's that crucial 3 damage attack that you're really hoping for when you're playing a Rivals Warband, and you have it on a fighter that has 6 wounds. So
it has 6 wounds.
Good luck.
And then the Inspire is kind of off of that. Like the Warband inspires when you take a fighter out of action that's adjacent to you. Oh yeah, and by the way, that range attack has the ability to pull someone closer to you. So he has a lot of tools just on his card to be successful in the Rivals format.
Yeah.
When he becomes inspired, he becomes extremely accurate. Range is 3 Fury. The melee one, up close one, the hunting knife is 3 smash.
Yeah.
Like, oh my goodness! And now with his launcher, he can pull you 2 hexes closer. And the rest of the warband gets more move.
And he also goes to 2 block.
Oh yes, sorry, yes, 2 block. I mean, just that's like the cherry on the sundae.
I know. It's an important cherry, though.
It is the cherry. Yeah, that's the 2 block is really what's important for him, because as we'll get into the other cards, he probably doesn't need 2 block, but he's got it.
Yeah, and Thrafnir gains Cleave on Inspire, and a built-in reroll.
And a built-in reroll. The Noblars get 2 of them get 2 dodge. The other one just stays what he is. They get plus 1 move, but really doesn't matter.
No.
Then wait, there's more. So we have a really good fighter. We have a supporting cast member. We have some other guys that do some stuff. But how about those objective cards, Jared?
Yeah, so you literally coming from famine into feast. So Wurmspat has 3 surges. Most Rivals Warbands in Beastgrave have 5 surges. 5 surges. Hrothgorn gets 8. So you want to talk about the ability to cycle through your deck and score glory in the action phase. Hrothgorn is the one. And so probably the best one, mostly because of the mechanics in Harrow Deep, is Arm of the Everwinter. So this is a surge objective. You score it immediately if a feature token is removed from the battlefield or is flipped by your warband. So all you have to do is put a Noblar on a feature token in the back of the battlefield somewhere and flip it over, and you get 1 glory.
Delve it. And
delve it. Yeah.
The key here is that it doesn't even need to be the objective feature token. It literally it could be the Gloom feature token. You
could be the Gloom feature token. Flip it like to Gloom. Yep. It's awesome. Good times.
So that one's going to score real easy to kind of get that glory train going. Another one that should be fairly easy for you to score is Unexpected Cutting. Score this immediately after playing a 3rd or subsequent power card in the same phase. So that could be a gambit or an upgrade in the entire action phase.
Yep. It's pretty good. And then I think the other one that we wanted to call out was Hunter's Feast. And so this is actually, it's fairly doable, which is shocking for a 2 glory surge objective. Score this immediately when your leader's attack action takes an enemy fighter out of action, and your leader made 1 or more attack actions that took an enemy fighter out of action earlier in this phase. So it's probably not going to happen early game, but it's a nice 2 glory bump that ultimately nets you 4 glory because you've killed 2 fighters. Shoot somebody with the trap launcher, and then run up and smack somebody with your hunting knife. Bada bing, bada boom. You're done.
Whole lot of glory.
Whole lot of glory. Yep.
And then moving into the gambits, just in case you need to have a little boost to your attack actions, Hrothgorn has a restricted just to him, so this gambit is only used on him, but it is Ravenous Fury. Play this after your leader's failed range 1 attack action. He either makes an attack action. So if you do have to charge in, or we're really looking for that Inspire, and that 2 smash attack doesn't go off, you can do it again.
Yep. Nice. And then if you're looking to add to his mobility, there's Driven Onwards, and this lets you remove a move token from a fighter that has 1 or more move tokens, and it's remove those tokens. So you actually get to remove all move tokens that are on the fighter. So you could, maybe start Hrothgorn in the back of the field, and then you move him up, and then you remove his move tokens after everybody does their positioning, and you can move again and just turret the middle of the battlefield or make a charge or whatever it is that you need to do.
Yeah. The card cut requires a little more setup, but the fact that you're going to be focusing more on Hrothgorn, you can really leverage the fact that you can reposition him and then still have the ability to charge or move.
Yeah. It's pretty cool.
And then I guess we'll throw 1 card to the Noblars.
It's a really good card, though.
It's Narblar Scramble. Push each friendly Narblar up to 2 hexes. It really helps with positioning of Quiv. It helps with Arm of the Everwinter. Maybe Bushwhacker gets in position to put down the trap. Or maybe you're just pushing your Noblars back even further so the enemy can't get them.
So they can huddle in the corner somewhere. Hrothgorn goes to town. Oh, good times, good times. Upgrades. Spoiled for choice here.
Just let me just click on one. We'll go through the most oppressive ones that he has. Massive Bulk, plus 2 wounds. That once again has to go on Hrothgorn. But here's a -2 move, plus 2 wound card. And yeah, the -2 move is bad, takes him down to 2 move. But you're up to 8 wounds, and remember, you still have a threat range of 5 with that card on him because of the trap launcher.
Yep. Famed Hunter is another good one. It's a reroll. Reroll 1 attack dice in this fighter's attack actions. So that's his range 1 and his range 3 attack actions. Pretty good.
Seems good.
Yep.
Last but not least, Toughen Hide is yet another way to keep him alive, which is -1 damage to attacks that are coming into him. So if you hit him for 3, you're only doing 2. Just again, he is important to the warband, but in this Rivals deck alone, he has plus 2 wounds, so 8, -1 damage, which means that most people are going to have to hit him 4 times.
Yeah.
And then there is a gambit that we didn't talk about that allows him to heal. So if he kills somebody, he can heal 1 or heal 2. You're really going to have some longevity out of the Mantrapper.
Yep. Oh, for sure. Yeah. Thoughts on boards, Jason?
Anything that I can hide my Noblars in back. Yep. So I want like 3 that are really towards the back of the board. And then puts, that single fighter up front. And I'm probably going to stay away from lethals, although I could definitely use it, to kill things by pushing them and pulling them. I think in the Rivals format, it's just better to really leverage into my 6 wounds and not give my opponent any kind of opportunity to take a pip of damage off of me.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
But how are we going to get around him? So if I sit down at the table and you're that person that's playing Mantrapper, what should I do?
Kill the Noblars?
But you put them in the back, so what do I do?
So if you can't kill the Noblars, you basically just focus. If you can score things passively that are going to prevent him from engaging you or make him commit early, you can go that route. The other option is you just hit him as hard as you can, as early as you can. You probably want to send a resilient fighter first, so that he can't inspire because he's sitting next to you and taking you out with that delicious 2 smash 3 damage attack. But yeah, it'll be. There's not a lot that you can do to stop him scoring his passive stuff. You're going to have to mitigate how much damage he does to your warband. on that end. So, um,
drive them back, right? So if you hit them, drive them back.
Yeah, absolutely.
Make them roll the trap launcher, get you closer. Don't give them the free hunting knife attack.
Right.
And the other tactic that works in Championship, and it would be a little bit harder in Rivals, is divide and conquer. So if you pick engagement, which means the Hrothgorn player places the first board, get a board where you can deploy left and right. Don't deploy in the middle. Make him commit to the left side or the right side. You kind of go tanky with the side that he commits to and get those other fighters back into Thrafnir and the Noblars. You don't give them your whole warband to beat up on.
No, that's a good call. Yep. What's his play style?
Aggro all day with a lot of easy scores.
Yeah, and Noblars in the back.
Yeah, Noblars in the back.
So what are we going to rate him, Jason?
He is. I mean, I don't. What is a form of metal like? Platinum? Raw iron? No, raw iron. I think he's
raw iron. Coal, just coal. Not even. Yeah. There's no metal components in there. Just pure carbon.
No, he's definitely gold. I think what he can really serve as a Rivals player, kind of learning the full game, is this is a warband that you have all the tools to learn activations and how to maximize those activations with a single fighter, which is a skill. So it's a really good warband, but I will tell you, I struggle with these type of warbands. I am not very good at managing my card pool and that single fighter. So there is a lot to be learned here. But I also, Jared, if I'm being honest, it's probably one of the few warbands in Rivals that, as an experienced player, I think it could be a little oppressive because he has so many wounds.
Yeah. Yep. Nope. I agree. Cool. Well, that's the Wurmspat and Hrothgorn's Mantrappers. So we'll take a break, and when we come back, we'll go over Morgwaeth's Blade Coven and Morgok's Krushas. Probably mine and Jason's favorite warbands from Beastgrave.
I do love me some Blade Coven.
All right, and we're back, and we are going to cover the final two warbands of the Beastgrave season. As I mentioned before, these are arguably mine and Jason's respective favorite warbands from Beastgrave, and so we'll kick things off with Jason's favorite, Morgwaeth's Blade Coven. Jason, tell us about these fighters.
Most definitely. I do love me the Blade Coven. Played them a lot in Championship. So anyway, the fighters, it's a 5-fighter warband. And each one kind of has a unique ability. But I want to start with their Inspire, because they do have just a generic Inspire that they all inspire if they're alive in the third round, which is cool because if you get to the end of the game, they're going to inspire. But the current Harrow Deep rules, you do lose an activation on that Inspire, right? Because you have to wait for the Inspire step. But the other thing I do want to point out is they have an additional way to Inspire. So if you take an enemy fighter out of action, Morgwaeth has an ability on her card. It's not really a reaction, but it's just an ability. Whenever an enemy fighter is taken out of action, choose one. Oh my Lord, I can't read. Holy cow.
Literacy, it's tough, man.
Taken out of action, choose and inspire one friendly fighter. This is after any reactions to the action or gambits that took the enemy fighter out of action, and any reactions to the enemy fighter being taken out of action. So it happens right after that reaction step, but you'll still get the Inspire step. So it's kind of a way around where you can get somebody fully inspired early in the game. A very cool mechanic. And you're probably going to inspire Morgwaeth herself right away. At least, she makes a good case for it because she is a very accurate fighter. She has 2 dodge. She's 4 wounds. But when she's inspired, she goes to 3 damage and has cleave and has 5 move. So that's a total threat range of 7. If she becomes inspired, and she can really do some heavy lifting for the warband. After that, the second fighter that I think I would inspire would be Kyrie, the snake lady. She has a great bow attack, range 4, and she starts at move 5 on 2 dodge. A little soft at 3 wounds, but with that 9/9 range threat, definitely can get some work done. And the reason you want her inspired is because she has a secondary attack, which is her sacrificial knife, that goes to 3 fury on 2 damage or 4/2 damage when she's inspired.
Yeah.
So like her being inspired, but you could also make a case for my favorite fighter in the Warpan, and that's Camus, or the Whip Lady. She is a really cool, unique fighter. Range 4, only 2 wounds, which is real squishy. But her attack is the whip is 3 fury, 2 damage, but it has combo, and we haven't seen combo in the Rivals format. And I don't think to date this is the only warband that uses combo if you're playing a Rivals deck. So you do that, you go and you hit for 2 on a pretty accurate attack, and then with that combo, she can remake a reaction with her bladed buckler that could do an additional damage on a smash. If she's inspired, that bladed buckler goes to 2 damage. So if she was inspired and you hit both attacks, that's 4 damage, basically through 1 activation, which is phenomenal. She also goes to 2 dodge, so if you get her on a Gloom Hex, she's pretty survivable from a defense standpoint. Yep. The last 2 fighters, you have Krushas and Lethir. They're very much the similar fighters. They're kind of the least active of them. Krushas does have built-in Grievous, so +1 damage on a crit. And then Lethira, once she's inspired, she can do double damage, so that if you roll 2 successes in your attack action, the damage that the attack is done with is done twice. So kind of cool, but she's probably the dangle bro of the bunch. The other thing, I think I did note that 3 2-wound fighters, which make them very squishy.
Yeah, no, that's very true. Oh, cool. Favorite objectives we're looking out for. So probably Swift Sacrifice.
Yeah.
So score this immediately when a friendly leader or Kire makes a range 1 or 2 attack action that takes an enemy fighter out of action. So this is nice. You could send in Chris or Lethir to do 1 damage to a 3-wound fighter and then follow up with Morgwaeth to get those last 2 wounds off. Still keeping Morgwaeth relatively safe. So that one's a good one.
Yeah, and then Torturous Death is another surge. Keynote 5 surge objectives in this deck, so we're back to the standard.
Yep.
But Torturous Death, score this immediately if your Warman makes a 3rd or subsequent attack action that targets the same enemy fighter in this phase. It is the same enemy fighter, but you have that wonderful bow attack that's range 4, so we might be able to plink away 1 or 2. And then Camus could just give you 2 attacks just with her 1 activation with the whip. You're running in on a Fecula, bam,
yep.
And they don't have to be successful. They just have to be attack actions. So key point there, doesn't have to be successful.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And then what do we have? The Devoted Disciple.
Yeah, a little cheeky fun here.
Yeah. So score this in an end phase if 1 or more surviving friendly fighters have 1 or more wound tokens. So just grab a board with a lethal hex and run Lethir through it, and then back to the back of the board. 1 glory.
1 glory. Keep her safe. Get that 1 glory. Does limit you on board selection, but hey, when you're playing with an objective deck that probably isn't going to go off all that well, we'll give it to you.
Yeah. No. All right, Gambits. I'm not going to make you say this one. Catechism of Murder.
Why not?
Yeah, literacy is hard, Jason.
It is.
So this is a Gambit ploy. Choose 1 friendly fighter. That fighter is inspired. It is restricted to Morgwaeth, so if Morgwaeth is dead, you cannot do this. But you basically get to inspire. You get to bypass the inspire conditions / 3rd round restriction for the inspire, which can be really nice. Jason, who do you inspire first?
Either Morgwaeth or Whip Lady.
Okay, yeah. So for the accurate whip, in combo, or Morgwaeth because she goes 3 damage. That makes sense.
Yeah, and if it's like, let's say it's second round, I'm probably going to go Kyrie because I've probably done damage to someone in Perfect Kill. I'm not sorry, not Perfect Kill. Swift Sacrifice. If I haven't scored that yet, now Kyrie can score that for me.
Sure.
But out the jump, Morgwaeth 1, and then Whip Lady 2.
Gotcha. All right, other gambits.
Fanatical Faith allows you, so we said that with the 3-2 fighters, the warband's really squishy. It's a glass hammer. So Fanatical Faith allows you to be aggressive and kind of protect the fighter, especially on that last activation of the round. You're able to charge in if your opponent has, an activation to kind of counter with. This is the first time a friendly fighter would be dealt damage, but dealt any amount of damage in the next activation, that fighter is dealt 1 damage instead. So it can really help keep somebody alive.
Yeah, and it's nice because you can play it like after you watch what your opponent's setting up. So let's say they're tooling somebody up to do 4 damage to Morgwaeth. Be like, actually, she's just going to take 1. Thanks. So it's good. It's good. I like it. Zealot's Rage. Zealot's Rage. This is a reaction. Play this after a friendly fighter's attack action that fails. That fighter makes an attack action. So why is that wording important, Jason?
I don't know. Maybe it's because you can then attack again with the whip from Camus. So perfect scenario is you run in, you hit with the whip, you do 2 damage. You go Bladed Buckler and it fails. You play the Zealot's Rage. You go back to the whip with 3 for 2, and then if needed, you make another Buckler attack. So could really stack some damage really quickly.
I think if she's inspired, I think you just killed Hrothgorn.
Yeah,
that's 6 damage.
Yeah, and the nice thing is that the buckled blade or
bladed
buckler does not have to be to the same target, so you can really start stacking.
Yeah, I like it. All right, what's the honorable mention here, Jason?
Yeah, my honorable mention, because everyone should know that my favorite part of the game is rolling crits. And it's a Carve a Ruin reaction. Play this during a friendly fighter's range 1 or 2 attack action that succeeds before dealing damage. If there was a crit in the attack roll, gain 1 spent glory.
That's right. Don't even have to kill him.
Just give me
does some. Does have to be successful.
Does have to be successful. Yes.
Yeah. All right. Upgrades.
This is the tough one. So I think probably the best of the bunch is Rune of Slaughter. Also one of my favorite because it is +1 damage in range 1 or 2 attack actions for each crit in the attack roll.
So nice.
Yeah, but it's still crits, and although I'll roll 5 crits on 4 dice, most people don't do that.
No.
So.
It is your special talent. It's a good one to have. And then I think another good upgrade is Death Dancer. So this is like the one that we saw in the Wurmspat reaction. After this fighter's attack action, not during a super action, push this fighter 1 hex. It's really good for Morgwaeth or for Kire, or even Camus, really. You've got ranged attacks. You don't have to be adjacent to somebody. So you can make your attack action and then push to get into a different position, better position, whatever the case is. Just can't do it after a charge.
Yeah, and then the last one I'd go with is High Oracle Butcher, which is on Kare, where she gets an additional glory point for taking an adjacent enemy fighter out of action. It's a little bit of a stretch, but it is cool that there is a card that gives you extra glory.
No, and it's good. It would be useful to have. Boards.
With boards, you have to leverage into their movement. So I'm going to pick something that I can deploy, mid board to backboard. We talked about the lethal hex. If that's a strategy that you want to employ, you're going to have to make sure that you pick one of those. Yeah. But I want to choose the engagements. So I'm going to pick a board that, I can reach out and touch the opponent with my movement, but they can't get into my 2 wound fighters.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Or Morgwaeth.
Yeah. So playstyle, we're thinking, what do we say? Thoughtful aggro?
Yes, that is what we use. Thoughtful aggro. This is not a warband. They are a glass cannon. So whatever you send in has to do its job because it's probably going to die.
Yep.
And if you get really aggressive with Morgwaeth and you lose her early, it's going to be an uphill battle.
Yeah. You won't be able to inspire until 3rd round.
Yeah. So, when we sit down and play, Jared, what are you doing to counter me with when I have Blade Coven?
Yeah, so you just mentioned this. If you can kill Morgwaeth early, that's a big deal because it prevents the Inspire, either from the Gambit or for them taking somebody out of action, which is a big deal. The other option is that you just farm glory from the 3 2-wound fighters that are on 1 dodge when they're not inspired. They have to be aggro, so you can really just kind of let them come to you, and then just focus down whatever they send in to charge. Give them terrible options for attacks. Put your 4-wound fighter out in front to tank, an attack or 2, and then away and let your other fighters do their business.
And that's when Kama says, "No, not today." And
not today. I'm just going to
all crits, and you're dead.
Yep. On her bow.
Yeah.
So I know you say this with trepidation, but what do we rate them?
I was hoping that you were going to answer this. This question.
I'll answer, and it makes me sad too. But I think we have to call them a bronze.
Yeah.
They're a ton of fun to play. The fighters are not bad. They really need to be inspired to be really good. Having 3 2-wound fighters in a 5-fighter warband hurts. And their deck really, both their objective deck and their power deck is just, it's below average. And it hurts. It just means they don't play the way that you want them to. So they're a ton of fun to play though. Like just running around, you're super fast, you have really accurate attacks, you're just not doing a lot of damage. And that can make things difficult. And their deck it's not balanced. It doesn't, you're either needing to be on objectives or you need to be killing things, or some mystically doing both. So killing things while on an objective, which is even harder in Harrow because put a fighter on it, delve it, and then get that fighter off of it so another fighter can charge on it and do an attack or whatever. No, I mean they're a good bronze, but I think they're still a bronze.
I mean there is. And I just read this. I didn't even know this card, just goes to show how much the game has changed. But proof of devotion, it's a 3rd end phase scorer. But if I hold all the enemy, or if I killed everyone, I'd get it, which is highly unlikely. But if my warband holds all objectives in enemy territory, it's worth 3 glory. So maybe everything is still Gloom Hex, and I come in and, with the last second, flip 1 and score 3. But to your point, the objectives work against each other.
Yeah. So. Yeah, they have one where one fighter, only one friendly fighter can hold an objective, and then they have another one where 3 friendly fighters need to hold objectives. Those are both cards in their deck. It's literally lined up against each other. All right, so we covered Jason's favorite. Now it's my turn. My favorite Beastgrave warband, Morgok's Krushas. So this is the 4th elite warband in Beastgrave. So we had the Condemners, we had Rippas, we had Wurmspat, and now we've got Morgok's Krushas. Fun fact, these are Auric Brutes. They have 5 wounds each, and 2 of the fighters start with 3 damage. Morgok is 2 smash with 3 damage. Artskull is 2 fury with 3 damage, so not very accurate. And then you've got the young thug who's on 3 fury with 2 damage. So good fighters. They're 3 moves, so they're a little bit on the slow side, and they're 1 block. They have a unique mechanic called Wog Counter. So you place a Wog Counter anytime you do an attack action, or you play a Gambit, or meet some other condition that can happen from upgrades to place Wog Counters, and you inspire when you have 2 Wog Counters. Yes, Jason.
Yeah.
Question.
yeah, just raise my hand, ask the question. But I want to point this out because this episode is meant for the newer Rivals players, and it was brought up in our Discord where a newer player to the game didn't have a counter for something that was in the game, and they thought they couldn't play with that. Like I think it was hunger, and
then primacy
and primacy token. So just like, I guess because it hasn't come up with an actual where it's referring to a counter, like this is just it's just a token. Like you could use anything. You use pennies to represent the WoG counters, right?
I mean, if you're listening to this podcast and you're playing Warhammer Underworlds, it's likely that you're either an RPG player or a Magic player or a Warhammer tabletop battle game player of some kind. You're going to have some kind of dice, whether that's a D20 to count your health in Magic. You've got D6s if you play Games Workshop games. You've got all manner of dice if you're an RPG player. So just pop a dice on there. A 1 is 1 counter, a 2 is you have 2 counters. That way you're not putting your hands all over that grubby money, coins that nobody has. But come up. I mean, tear up a piece of paper to make counters if you have to. I mean, easy peasy. Everybody's got a receipt sitting in their wallet right now. Just tear pieces of paper off that to make your counters. Don't let not owning branded counters prevent you from playing what you want to play. Yeah, good point, Jason. So the Inspire condition, they have 2 WoG counters. Morgok goes from 2 Smash to 3 Fury, but he gets a reroll. Artskull goes from 2 Fury to 3 Fury, but he also gets a 2 Fury, 2 damage scything attack. And then Thug remains 3 Fury, 2 damage. But what's fun is that Artskull and Thug can now spend their WoG counters to do fun things. Artskull gets to add a pip of damage for every WoG counter he discards. And Thug gets to add a 1 dice to his attack actions for every WoG counter he discards. So either do more damage or get more accurate depending on what you need. The other thing that is of note is that Morgok has an on fighter card action. You remove 1 WoG counter from this card, and then push each friendly fighter up to 2 hexes. That includes himself. So you spend 1 WoG counter, and you get to push all 3 of your fighters 2 hexes for 1 activation. And that's huge for positioning, getting things set up, moving your fighters into the enemy to smash them, because that's what they want to do. So objectives.
Smash them.
Yeah, and it's funny because that is pretty aggressive warband. We'll talk about that soon. But two of the objectives that I called out have nothing to do with attacking. So now what is surge objective? It's 1 glory for holding 2 objectives after an activation, and then God at Boss is a surge objective. It's 1 glory for holding 1 objective in enemy territory. Nothing to do with attacking, nothing to do with anything else that these fighters are built to do, but it's some nice passive glory that isn't reliant on dice that your opponent cannot necessarily do a lot to stop. But
just these 2 objectives are put in a little bit of check with Harrow Deep, right? Because you got to move on to the feature token and then wait till the next activation after you've delved it to score it. So it might take you 1 or 2 activations, like maybe you hide in the gloom to be a little more resilient, and then flip it going into your turn, or maybe you just risk it for the biscuit and do it. So a little bit slower, but still very obtainable surges. And then I think the 3rd objective would be the Propa Rumble. Score this in end phase if 4 or more fighters are out of action or have wound tokens. Key thing here is 4 of any fighters, including yourself.
Yeah, and with 5 wounds, it's likely that you will probably get damaged and not taken out in a single attack. So this is something that you could score pretty easily, and they're accurate. They do good damage, so you'll either be damaging or taking out your enemy fighters as well.
So on to the Gambits.
The Gambits, Jason's least favorite card in this deck.
No.
You're not saying it? Mm-hmm. So Berserk Fortitude, this card came to bite Jason a couple times. It's a reaction. Play this during an attack action that targets a friendly fighter before the deal damage step, so you know whether it's successful or not. Remove any number of wall counters from that fighter's card. The attack action has -1 damage for each counter removed. So it's nice. It's a reaction, so it's not telegraphed. But especially if you're playing in the championship format, you have to look at the fighter that you're targeting and look at the number of wall counters that they have on their card and be like, okay, if they have this card, am I going to do enough damage to take this fighter out, or am I just going to hit this wall and bounce right off?
Yeah, and that the key point is it's not telegraphed. So even if you're not playing this warband, it is definitely one of those cards that you have to be mindful of as you kind of set up your attacks, that they can mitigate some damage, especially mid-game when they have 2 or 3 counters on their fighters.
Yeah. Yeah, and then so the next card that we want to cover combos right into that. It's Brutal Reprisal. So reaction, play this during an attack action that targets a friendly fighter and succeeds before the drive back step. The friendly fighter cannot be driven back and makes an attack action that must target the attacker. So not only did you not kill me after spending a bunch of resources, but I'm also going to get a free attack against you, and you're not driving me back. So
yes. The key with that just for the newer players too is that attack does not generate a WOG counter.
Correct.
It is not made in your activation.
That is correct. Yes, you only earn WOG counters for making attack actions during that fighter's activation. Yep. We'd be remiss if we didn't highlight a push card.
Yeah, I really forgot what one. So that we're going with Cunning Brutality.
Eager advance. Well, there's 2, right? It's a tie. So yeah, go ahead and cover Cunning Brutality.
So it's reaction. Play this after a friendly fighter's attack action. Push them up to 3 hexes.
Yeah.
As long as it's not part of a super action, it's pretty big push.
Yeah. And then the other one that I really like is Eager Advance. Choose 1 friendly fighter and push them 1 hex, and then place 1 WOG counter on the chosen fighter's fighter card. I really like this one on Morgok because you can push Morgok and then give him a WOG counter in the power step, and then in the activation step, you can activate him, use his on-fighter action, remove that WOG counter, and now push all your fighters 2 more hexes. It's good times.
A lot of free mobility.
Yep. Good times.
Yeah, and then for the upgrades, we'll start with Brute Charge. So this one takes the roles of Smashes and Furies, are successes for range 1 attacks on the charge action. So it kind of gets around like your accuracy woes while you're uninspired, and makes those charge attack actions very accurate.
Yeah, it's a good one. And then we've got Inure to Pain. So Jason's probably second least favorite card in this deck. We've seen this card before in another warband. When this fighter is dealt damage, reduce that damage by 1 to a minimum of 1, and that's a big deal when you've got 5 wound fighters. You're looking at 2 attacks taking a fighter down, and now it takes 3.
It's just, I mean, it's funny not to get sidetracked for a ton, but you have Berserk Fortitude, which mitigates damage, Inure to Pain, which mitigates damage. They're high wound fighters, and we saw the same thing in Hrothgorn. Yep. There's a theme.
Yep. And then the last one is Vengeful Glare. So this is reaction after an attack action that targeted this fighter. Place 1 WOG counter on this fighter's fighter card, so it doesn't have to succeed, and it gives you a way to earn WOG counters during your opponent's activation phase, which can be nice because then you can hit that Inspire step before your activation, maybe be inspired before you make your attack.
Yeah, lots of fun.
I like it.
So what board am I picking?
Anyone that gives you 3 right in your opponent's face.
Not back.
No, not in the back. Nope.
And then when, also with board placement, objective or feature token placement, make sure you're placing 1 over the line and 1 in an area that you can get to in your area that will allow you then to get into the opponent's area, whether that's in round 2 or later in the first round. Yep. Just setting up those 2 surge objectives.
Yep.
Play style?
Aggro, and then grab those objectives when it makes sense to do so. If you kill all of your opponent's fighters, then they're probably not going to score their objectives anyway. So those that 2 glory for now what and got it boss probably won't matter.
Yeah.
Yep.
And now, because it is Rivals format, I'm gonna play these guys
Yeah, you are.
To try them out. How are you going to dismantle me? What are you going to do?
Yeah, so I think the call out that you gave for the Wurmspat, where you force you to charge, right? Like, so don't feed you fighters. If I go in to attack you for some reason, make sure I'm driving you back so that you have to make a charge to get the attack off. Single fighters out. Try not to spread that damage out, because a wounded Krusha is just as lethal as a healthy Krusha. It would be better to remove a fighter. And then really, if you have anything passive, try to score that. If you're Grymwatch or you're Despoilers, where you can get on 3 objectives, or you can play gambits or whatever the case is, to get that glory, to get your upgrades on, to make yourself more accurate or do more damage. Try to do that without engaging them as much as possible.
Yeah. The easiest fighter I found to take down is actually Ardskull, because he's probably going to miss his attack.
Yeah.
And then he's charged.
Yep.
And I don't have to worry about him until the next activation. So.
Yeah. Yep.
And then unlike the last warband, what would you rate this warband for a new player and Rivals?
Yeah, so they're gold. And it's, so I think there's an asterisk there, and I'll let you bring that up. But the fighters are really good fighters. They've got good stat blocks. They're easy. It's an easy warband to pilot. Most of your objectives are built around things that the fighters are built to do. We called out really the 2 that are not in Now What and Got It Boss, but you can mitigate that by placing your feature tokens in ways that make sense, where you're going to be able to be on an objective and charge, as that goes. But and because I think we've mentioned this before with other elite warbands, but because they're a 3-fighter warband, you get the opportunity to participate in the card draw aspect of the action phase, whether that's drawing a gambit or ditching an objective to draw a new objective, because you can kind of sit and wait. So
yeah, picking your battles. But my real question is, like, 3-5 wound fighters in Rivals, are they oppressive?
Yes, they. I think that they are oppressive. I don't know that they're as oppressive as Hrothgorn, mostly because you can make it so that you have to deal with Hrothgorn, or to try to get to the soft targets. You can put the Noblars in the back, and now if you're going to try to get to those soft targets, well, now you have to deal with Rafnir and Hrothgorn. I think what's nice about this warband is that basically all 3 fighters are going to want to be in your face, so you're gonna be spoiled for choice when it comes to targets. So hopefully you can bait your opponent or kind of maneuver yourself so that you're getting to maximize your attacks on one particular fighter and take them down. Yep.
Yeah, I completely agree with that statement. I think they're a really good Rivals format warband. They have the tools to be oppressive because of the wounds, but I don't think they're as bad as a Hrothgorn.
Yeah. Yep.
Well,
yeah, that's it. Wow, we covered all of Beastgrave. Cool.
All Beastgrave. Why don't we take a break and come out and close out?
Yep, that sounds good. And we're back, and that actually closes us out for the show. So I guess we'll do the needful and say thanks for listening. If you've enjoyed what you've listened to and you think it's worth sharing, be sure to give us the likes or the subscribes on whatever platform. If you want to share us, we're on Spotify, we're on Apple Podcasts, we're in basically every podcast player available. Find us on Facebook. We have a Discord. We try to be active talking in that. If you're local to the Raleigh area, join our Discord, meet us. We'd love to play, hang out, chat. But this has been a lot of fun to do, and we hope that this is a document that is going to be valuable throughout the life of Warhammer Underworlds, as the Rivals format kind of comes into the fore as the best way to get new players into the game. So Jason, you want to add anything?
Yeah, just, I don't often ask for feedback, but this has been fun for us. And we know for the veteran players, there's probably a lot of rehashed content, in the past, whatever this episode is, hour, 2 hours. But I would really like the feedback. Like, does the community find this helpful? Like, are you a new player just getting into the game? What did you think? Please let us know, because we plan on doing a whole nother season and then, getting caught up to the current stuff. And I really enjoyed it. Like, I've really enjoyed Rivals. Shout out to our little Rivals League that we got going on. Really enjoying the game in this type of format. And although it does lend itself to the newer player, there is enough there that it has me interested. So really happy to record this stuff. So please just let us know what you think.
Yep. And I think other personalities in the Underworlds game have said this, but a Rivals game is better than no game.
Yes.
100%, a million times, infinitely better than no game. So if the Triangle community decides that Rivals is the way that we'll go, then we'll do that, and then Jason and I can grab a championship match, on a weekly or semi-weekly basis. We'll feed that itch that way. Yeah, so cool. So thanks for listening. This has been your Beastgrave Rivals Warband review for the Battle Mallet podcast. We are two dads.
Just got through the holidays.
Two dads who are recovering from the holidays. So this is Jared signing out.
And I'm Jason Table Murray. Thanks for listening. Get the hell out of here.
Peace.
The Battle Mallet podcast is protected under the Creative Commons license. If you have further questions as to its use, you can find more information via links on podcast.battle-mallet.com. Music by Anno Domini Beats.
Ready just to go?
Yeah, let's go.
Through it. All right.
Yeah. All right.
You're like 6 minutes to pumpkin time.
That's right.